Chapter 449. This situation is a bit similar to that of Papa and Mama. It seems that Ali can also be a matchmaker, huh? Fei Bai had no choice but to follow. After hearing what Ali said, he was a little confused. In actuality, Fei Bai and Xianxia had known each other since they were young. Long, and City's social circle was only that big. Fei Bai's family belonged to the bishop's faction, while Xianxia belonged to the royal family's faction. They were destined to become rivals in the future. However, that was something to do after they grew up. After all, they were only 16 years old. When they were in the prime of their youth, they would hang out and play together. Xianxia was one of the more outstanding girls among the three factions and was liked by many boys. Of course, Fei Bai liked her as well, but he did not say it out loud. He knew that since he was in the bishop's faction, it was impossible for him to be with her in the future. At this moment, an octopus bro walked over with a microphone in his hand. "Hello, this is a street interview." Octopus bro grinned and his entire head was filled with tentacles. Looking at the octopus bro, Dong Huangli's entire body went numb, and Dong Huangli hid behind Xianxia. Fei Bai and Xianxia were now normal. Fei Bai said, "Interesting, what do you want to interview? I have a device here. Just take a look at your face and you will know how many times you have booked a room." Zhang Yuji's words shocked Fei Bai. The number of times he booked a room? Fei Bai said hurriedly, "What's there to test? Let's go, let's go." "Wait, I think the test is pretty good," Xianxia said indifferently. "Gee, that's not allowed. I'll treat you to ice cream." Xianxia didn't care at all and let Brother Octopus do the test. Octopus was very happy. He wanted to break up a couple and take revenge on society. The test results came out very quickly. 0 room booking record. This made Fei Bai secretly happy. He did not think that Qingyi had not gone to a hotel before. She was a good girl. "Qingyi, didn't you say there's a dress you like? I'll buy it for you." Fei Bai immediately changed the topic. "Test," Xianxia said coldly. Dong Huangli said in a low voice, "Big brother Fei, do you not dare to do it?" "He who says I don't dare? It's just a test. So be it." Fei Bai could only bite the bullet. However, the results were often astonishing. At such a young age, he had actually opened it 153 times. Hearing this result, Xianxia's entire body emitted a chill. "Thank you for your cooperation. I wish you two a long life together." Brother Octopus ran away after saying that. He was very worried that he would get hammered. Qingyi listened to the explanation. "This is all a group of scoundrel friends getting a room and playing cards. It's not what you think." Xianxia said indifferently, "What does it have to do with me?" Fei Bai kept explaining along the way, but he did not know why he had to explain such things. On the other hand, Xianxia brought Dong Huangli everywhere and bought delicious food for Dong Huangli. However, Fei Bai wasn't included. During this time, Xianxia received a call from his father to attend the banquet hosted by the Zhou clan. After all, they were all from the royal family. This time Fei Bai got what he wanted. Although he was from the Episcopal Church, because of his young age he could still attend such a banquet, and the elders would not say anything. However, after he became an adult he could no longer do so. The sky gradually darkened, and the three of them appeared in front of the Zhou family's main gate. This was a very high-tech mansion and the ecosystem was self-regulating. One could not help but admire the comfort brought by technology. There were many people who came to attend the banquet and most of them were from the royal family. However, there were also young people like Fei Bai who came to learn from the experience and build a good relationship with him. In the future they would be enemies. Dong Huangli was also very curious and she was sizing up Dong Huangli. "This trip is too fun. In the future I should come out to travel more often in the future to gain more experience." "Ali, follow closely," Xianxia reminded. "Yes. Qingyi, don't worry. I'll be watching over Ali," Fei Bai said with a smile. He had not paid any attention to Qingyi this afternoon. Xianxia exhaled. "Keep an eye on Ali, I'll go greet him." Looking at Xianxia's father who was not far away, Fei Bai tidied up his hair. "Should I pay my respects to uncle? Get lost." "All right." After Xianxia left for the time being, Dong Huangli pulled onto the corner of Fei Bai's clothes. "Big brother Fei, do you like big sister Qingyi? Do children know what love is?" Fei Bai sighed softly. Dong Huangli raised her chin and said, "A few days ago my daddy and mommy were quarreling with each other, and I was the one who pacified them. This little fellow really knows how to endlessly expose me." Saya, Li, you don't understand our situation here. Even if I like her and she likes me, in the end we will only become enemies. Fei Bai seemed to be very disappointed. How great would it be if we were in the same faction? We wouldn't have to worry so much. Dong Huangli didn't understand these things and said naively, "Isn't it fine as long as the two of us like each other? Why do we have to become enemies?" Fei Bai smiled and said nothing. "You aliens are truly troublesome." Dong Huangli sighed and said in an old-fashioned manner. Fei Bai laughed and teased, "You little alien, you sure are mature. Do you believe that I will be able to help you court big sister Qingyi?" Dong Huangli smiled mysteriously. "As expected, I inherited Yi Hua's genes. I like to do good deeds." Li, if you are able to help me court Qingyi, I will do anything you want me to do." Fei Bai patted onto his chest. "Right now I am not of age yet, there are some rules that I don't have to follow." Dong Huangli appeared to be very confident. "Leave it to me." Fei Bai patted onto Dong Huangli's shoulder. "Big brother appreciates your kind intentions, but there are some things that a child wouldn't understand." The banquet was held in the form of a buffet. People who were dressed luxuriously were chatting with each other in groups, and robots were shuttling back and forth among the crowd, serving drinks to the people. Meanwhile, Dong Huangli pulled out a stool and stood on the stool, then began eating the cake. "This is too delicious. This cream cake is simply too delicious." Everyone who was present at the banquet was sent by the royal family, and very few people would touch the buffet. Even if it was a person who looked like a teenager, it would be embarrassing for them to eat like this. However, Dong Huangli was a child and she looked so cute. "Oh, Li, is it delicious?" Zish Qingyi held onto the cream cake and fed it to Dong Huangli. Dong Huangli happily received the cream cake, and her big eyes narrowed into slits. "It's delicious." Fei Bai, who was at the side, was drinking fruit wine, looking very gentlemanly. "Big sister Qingyi, let me tell you a secret." Dong Huangli said with a smile. "What secret?" "Big brother Fei just told me that he has liked you for a very long time." Dong Huangli said with a smile. Fei Bai sprayed out all of the fruit wine that was in his mouth, then hurriedly explained, "Qingyi, Li is just spouting nonsense." Zish Qingyi silently took a look at Fei Bai, then let out a cold snort. Dong Huangli sighed, "Big brother Fei, if you continue like this, you will become a single dog in the future, just like my Uncle Green." Chapter 450. Dong Huangli pursed her lips. "It means a man who is unable to find a wife, a lone star, a lone wolf." "Hee, how could I, Fei Bai, not be able to find a wife? I can find a whole bunch of them in minutes." "Hee, go look for him." Zish Qingyi laughed coldly. Dong Huangli shook her head. This big brother Fei is also a male chauvinist. Within the crowd there were a lot of people who were paying attention to Dong Huangli. The rumor of the national wine had already spread out. Not sure where did Shi Tingting from the aristocratic party found a martial artist, and when Shi Tingting was eating, the martial artist opened a bottle that was similar to the national wine, which attracted a lot of people's attention. He also wanted to know if it was true or not. "Hey, isn't that Zhou Xian?" Fei Bai pointed at the young man not far away. Dong Huangli also saw Zhou Xian. Tonight, Zhou Xian was wearing a white and fitting gown, appearing very refined and courteous. However, no one paid any attention to him, causing him to appear a bit miserable. Fei Bai laughed. "I wonder if the Shi family will come tonight? If they come, then there will be a good show to watch." "You like watching it that much?" Zish Qingyi asked indifferently. It's not like you don't know how arrogant Zhou Xian was when he was strong. Look at him now, no one even cares about him." Dong Huangli shook her head helplessly. "Big sister Qingyi didn't mean that at all, she is truly an idiot." Suddenly, four people walked over from afar. "Damn, the Shi family is really here," Fei Bai exclaimed. Everyone looked at the people from the Shi clan. Among them there was a girl with an astonishing appearance, comparable to Zish Qingyi, but their temperaments were different. Zish Qingyi was amiable and approachable, while Shi Sihan had an air of arrogance. Everyone looked at the four of them. They discussed in whispers. The Shi family probably chose to come today to break off the engagement. Yeah, Zhou Xian used to be a spoiled brat, but now he's trash. How could the Shi family let Shi Sihan marry him? I didn't expect the proud son of the past to fall to such a state. That man looks so familiar. Heavens, it's Lu Qing, a first-grade martial warrior. Big shot. Looks like the Zhou family is going to be ruthlessly slapped in the face tonight. There are even 2 martial artist level experts. Is the royal family going to have an internal strife? Among the 4, there was a handsome man with a cold look in his eyes, as if he didn't care about anyone. This kind of small city was trash. Even a martial artist could proclaim himself as a king here. If he came here, wouldn't he be able to ascend to heaven? The expressions of the Zhou clan members changed slightly when they saw the 4 of them. Zhou Xian in particular clenched his fists tightly. It was obvious that he already knew why they were here. This was really a case of a tiger being bullied by a dog. That's Lady Lu Qing. I didn't expect the Shi family to invite such a person. Fei Bai was astonished. Martial warriors were such powerful beings that they could teach others how to behave in a matter of minutes. Dong Huangli asked curiously, "Is this Lu Qing very powerful?" Zijuqingyi took out a tissue and wiped the corner of Dong Huangli's mouth, then said in a low voice, "And I heard that in the main city, Dong Huangli's position is quite high. The Shi family is really generous." Fei Bai sighed. Dong Huangli continued to wave the chicken wing. "We are all small figures, what is there to be surprised about? The chicken wing is still the most delicious. It smells so good." However, to Long and City, such a person had not appeared for a very long time. This caused everyone to be extremely astonished. "Uncle Zhou, hello." Shi Sahan could be seen walking in front of the Zhou clan's family head, Zhou Yutong, and politely shouted out. Zhou Yutong was a tall and sturdy middle-aged man, and there was a faint smile on his face. However, right now, no matter how hard he tried to smile, he was unable to smile at all. The other party's intention was already very clear. This Shi family truly doesn't give me any face at all, to actually choose this kind of occasion. Sahan, after not seeing you for a few months, you have become even more beautiful. Zhou Yutong endured the anger in his heart, and right now Zhou Xia walked to the side and looked at this woman who had sworn not to leave him in the past. Shi Sahan said with a slight smile, "Uncle Zhou, you flatter me. Today Sahan came here to talk about a matter." Hearing what Shi Sahan said, everyone held their breath. She really came here to break off the engagement. Burp, a strange sound rang out. In this quiet occasion, Dong Huangli squatted down embarrassedly. After burping because she was too full, she let out a burp. After this small interlude, Shi Sahan said with a smile, "Uncle Zhou, if there's anything that Sahan wants to say, you don't have to treat me as an outsider." "Hehe, of course not, Sahan, if there's anything that you want to say, just say it." Looking at the martial warrior level experts and the 2 martial warriors behind them, Zhou Yutong didn't dare to say anything. Shi Sahan took a look at Zhou Xia, then said faintly, "My father wishes for our 2 families to break off the engagement. Sahan is truly sorry." Hearing what Shi Sahan said, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Shi Sahan really said it out loud. That's a direct slap to the face. However, Shi Sahan said it tactfully. She was rather polite. Shi Sahan raised her hand and Lu Qing took out a small box. Shi Sahan said faintly, "Uncle Zhou, inside this box is a spirit-gathering pill. Xia should be able to use it. I hope that he will be able to find a better girl in the future." Bang! The wine glass in Zhou Yutong's hand was smashed into pieces. "I am the dignified family head. And I actually got my face slapped by a little girl. Furthermore, it was done in front of so many people. This is a humiliation." Looking at his father's red face, Zhou Xia said coldly, "Shi Sahan, take your things and scram. Our Zhou family doesn't welcome you. Also, it's me who is divorcing you." To everyone's surprise, Zhou Xia took out a divorce certificate. It seemed like he had prepared for this. "Zhou Xia, I'm giving face to your father. I hope you won't tarnish your father's name anymore." Shi Sahan said disdainfully. "In the past, you were favored by the heavens and everyone had to suck up to you. But now who do you think you are?" Zhou Yutong took a deep breath and said, "Sahan, is this really what your father wants? It's my own business and I will make my own decisions. Uncle Zhou, please control your son and don't embarrass him in front of so many people." Hearing this, Zhou Xia shouted angrily, "Shi Sahan, remember what you said today. My Zhou Xia, I swear to the heavens that you will regret it." "Enough. Don't say any more." Zhou Yutong shouted at his son. "Wasn't he embarrassed enough?" Shi Sahan said faintly, "Uncle Zhou is right. Know your place and know your own strength. Don't keep saying things like, 'Life is full of ups and downs, don't bully the young.'" When you said that, I really wanted to laugh. Zhou Xian pointed at Xianxia and threw a punch at her. However, before he could make a move, his father, who was behind him, reached out and gave him a slap. Slap. It was loud and painful. Chapter 451. There were warriors on the other side. Father. Zhou Xian covered his face in disbelief. Xianxia smiled faintly and said, Uncle Zhou, it's fortunate that you made a move, otherwise Xianxia would have been injured. Zhou Yutong's expression was gloomy as he said, Xianxia, you have achieved your goal. Go back. Uncle Zhou, your son was about to hit me just now. Shouldn't you apologize? Xianxia had a wronged expression on her face. Her acting was not bad. This Zhou Xian really doesn't know his place. I've already given you face, but you still want to beat me up. He was really a toad lusting after swan meat. Why didn't he look at himself first? Zhou Xian wants to apologize. Gao Can suddenly shouted from the crowd. He was from the bishop's faction, so of course he was happy to see such a situation. He also had the intention of beating the dog when it was down. As Gao Can shouted, the youths who had been bullied by Zhou Xian in the past also started to jeer. Dong Huangli said, how pitiful to be targeted by so many people. Ali, if you knew Zhou Xian's character in the past, you wouldn't find him pitiful anymore, Fei Bai said calmly. Ziju Qingyi remained silent. In fact, no one interrupted. After all, the Shi family had brought a warrior with them. Who would dare to mess around? Zhou Xian, who had fallen to the ground, slowly stood up. His blood-red eyes glared at Xianxia as his body emitted a pure white spiritual energy. Damn, what was going on? How did this Zhou Xian? Zhou Xian is showing his prowess now. What a reversal, Xianxia is probably regretting it now. The spiritual energy on Zhou Xian's body grew thicker and thicker. His blood-red eyes turned white and his level continued to rise. Xianxia took a step back in disbelief. She didn't expect Zhou Xian to have such a reaction. Zhou Yutong, who was behind him, was very gratified. His son had indeed been enduring silently all this while. He was still the proud son of the past. As his strength increased, the dining table shook. Zhou Xian was like a bright sun, shining brightly. Beginner martial disciple. First grade martial disciple. 10th grade martial disciple. First grade martial disciple. 5th grade martial disciple. 10th grade martial disciple. This time, everyone was stunned. The Zhou family was about to rise. Zhou Xian had risen again. He was even more powerful than before. A wave of spiritual pressure gradually spread out and everyone could feel it. What terrifying strength. This Zhou Xian was only 16 years old, but he had already reached level 10. How fierce. You wouldn't be able to find a second genius like him in the entire Federation. This Xianxia was slapped in the face. Although it wasn't loud, it was painful. How could she miss such a man? If this didn't happen, Xianxia would be the woman of a superstar in the future. She would be the object of envy for all women. Boom. A beam of white light soared into the sky. Zhou Xian had reached the realm of a first-grade warrior. Oh my god. How was that possible? He's only 16 years old and he's already a samurai. A warrior of this age would be considered a genius even in the imperial capital. Xianxia stared blankly at Zhou Xian, who was in the middle of erupting, stupefied. Lu Qing was also shocked. It was her first time seeing such a young warrior. Especially from nothing to something. Just like leveling up from level 0 to level 10, he instantly went from an ordinary person to a samurai. Those youngsters who were mocking Zhou Xian just now all shut their mouths, and they were even afraid of Zhou Xian. The rising Zhou Xian will definitely take revenge on them. Oh my god, I suddenly feel so regretful. Just now it would have been fine if Xianxia had left. Why did I still have to apologize to them? Right now it isn't others who need to apologize, you are the one who needs to apologize. Fei Bai and Ziju Qingyi were both stupefied. We are only martial disciples, and Zhou Xian has actually reached the realm of a first-grade warrior. The difference between us isn't small at all. Dong Huangli licked the ice cream. She felt that she had changed from a small salted fish to a big salted fish, but she was still a salted fish. Zhou Xian slowly opened his eyes, feeling the power that he hadn't felt for a long time. Looking at Xianxia, who was in front of him, he said, I told you before, I will make you regret. Life is full of ups and downs, don't bully a young man for being poor. At this moment, after Zhou Xian said such a sentence, No one refuted him and no one laughed at him. After all, who would dare to laugh at a 16-year-old samurai? Is he tired of living? However, Dong Huangli was amused by Zhou Xia's words, then pointed at Zhou Xia and said, Ali has already heard you say that 3 times. Everyone at the scene, Fei Bai and Ziju Qingyi, immediately covered Dong Huangli's small mouth. Little ancestor, that is a samurai, you are not allowed to laugh at him. Fei Bai said in a low voice, Ali, it wasn't 3 times, it was 2 times, and the other time was said by Xianxia. Was that so? Ali remembered wrongly, I'm really sorry. Dong Huangli pouted her mouth. Just now I was too focused on eating. Zhou Xia took a cold glance at Zhou Xia. I will properly teach all of those who laughed at me a lesson. However, I will first make these people in front of me regret. Xianxia, if you kneel down and beg right now, I will still take you in as a concubine. Zhou Xia said coldly. A lot of people felt that Zhou Xia was not bad. Although a concubine cannot be compared to a concubine, becoming a concubine of a samurai is still a great honor. After hearing that, Xianxia's beautiful face alternated between white and red. I didn't expect that this trash would actually explode. Zhou Xia, so what if this is the case? My Xi family is about to go to the Imperial City. Have you been there before? Do you know how many people like you are in the Imperial City? Even if you suddenly become strong now in my eyes, you will forever be a trash. Lu Qing, who was at the side, couldn't help but sigh. Even in the entire Imperial City, this Zhou Xia can be counted as a genius. Right now, if you admit defeat, you will still be able to become a concubine, but in the future, even if you want to become a concubine, you won't have any plans at all. I, Zhou Xia, don't dare to say that I am an absolute genius, but in the entire Blue Blaze planet, how many people are like me? A 16-year-old first-rank samurai. Xianxia, I know that you are very regretful right now, so stop putting on an act, kneel down and kowtow to admit your mistake. There is still a place for you in my concubine. A second ago, Xianxia was suppressing Zhou Xia, and in the next second, Zhou Xia rose up and slapped Xianxia's face. Xianxia tightly clenched her fists. Why did this bastard rise up? He's a trash. A complete and utter trash. Right at this moment, a family's airship arrived in the sky, and under a blue light, a slightly plump man appeared on the airship. Father! Xianxia shouted out in grievance. Slap. Xihua gave his daughter a backhand slap on her face. How dare he secretly come to break off the engagement? If it wasn't for someone coming to report, he would have missed out on a genius son-in-law, a 16-year-old samurai. In the future he would be a marquis. Everyone was shocked. This reversal came one after another, and the head of the Xi family gave his daughter a big slap when he got off the airship. Chapter 452. Xianxia covered her cheek, her eyes filled with shock. Her father actually hit her in front of so many people. Although you didn't say anything when I came here to break off the engagement, you must have known about it and acquiesced to it. How dare he hit me? He felt wronged. Xianxia felt extremely wronged. Xihua walked toward Zhou Yutong and unexpectedly held his hand, saying apologetically, Old Zhou, I've really troubled you. This unfilial daughter of mine actually did such a thing behind my back. I'm sorry for staying here. Everyone scolded him for being shameless. He came just because he saw someone else rise up. If Zhou Xia hadn't risen, he wouldn't have come. Zhou Yutong didn't want to make a big deal out of this. After all, Xihua's cousin was in the imperial capital, and he was even an official. He couldn't afford to offend him. Since the other party had given him face, then forget it. Old Xi, look at what you're saying, it's all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Zhou Yutong revealed out a smile that he hadn't seen for a long time. Forcing the Xi family to lower their head, this Xi family's influence in Long'an City is second to none. In the past, she had been happy that her son could climb up the ladder with the Xi family. But now, it seemed like the Xi family wanted to climb up the ladder with her son. Fei Bai whispered, how shameless, too shameless. For the sake of benefits they can do anything. Dong Huangli had a very puzzled look on her face. At her age she still needs to digest what she just said. This is a marriage alliance, Ziju Qingyi said indifferently. Even he could not escape the shackles of fate. Fei Bai comforted her, you will find a man who will treat you well in the future. Dong Huangli immediately covered her face with her hand. Pushing the girl that he likes away. I have never seen such a thing before. Zijiqingyi said indifferently, that's for sure. I'm definitely better than you. Fei Bai laughed dryly. Xihua smiled at Zhou Xian and said, Jia Sihan is too mischievous. Uncle has already taught her a lesson for you. Don't be angry, we're family. Whose family with her? Zhou Xia shouted coldly. Xihua's face stiffened. This boy was humiliated and he definitely didn't feel good. She just insulted the Zhou family. Uncle Shi, what should we do? Zhou Xia questioned. Why didn't he show up just now when he knew that he was a super potential stock? Did he take him for a fool? Xihua hardened his heart. This Zhou Xia would definitely have extraordinary achievements in the future. He had to pull him along. Sihan, come here. Xihua shouted angrily. Shi Sihan covered her face and slowly walked over. Apologize to Ji. Shi Sihan widened her eyes. Father, how can I apologize? Not only do you have to apologize, you have to kneel down and apologize to me. Who told you to break off the engagement? Your wings have hardened. Xihua roared. Father, you actually made your daughter kneel. I won't kneel. Shi Sihan was also a woman with character. She never regretted her words. Xihua said solemnly, I see that you are getting bolder and bolder. With a single hand he pressed his daughter onto the ground. Even though she wasn't kneeling, it was enough to show her attitude. Of course, Zhou Yutong had to play the good cop at this moment. He quickly helped Shi Sihan up and smiled. It's normal for youngsters to be noisy. Don't you think so? Xihua also said, that's right. Young people are hot-tempered. They'll be more stable after they have children. Zhou Xia suddenly laughed. That's true, after Sihan gives birth to my child, she'll be a lot more well-behaved. Upon hearing what Zhou Xia said, the two fathers laughed heartily. Only Shi Sihan knew what Zhou Xia meant. This trash is definitely trying to torture me. You are not worthy of me. You are a trash and you still want me to give birth to your child? Dream on. Burp, Dong Huangli burped again. Dong Huangli couldn't help but rub her stomach. I'm so full. If I continue to eat like this, I'll turn into a pig. Burp, Dong Huangli couldn't help but burp again. Everyone looked towards her direction. Burping in this kind of situation is very strange. It's as if you are not giving other people face at all. Facing the gaze of so many people, Dong Huangli apologized very politely. I'm sorry, Ollie ate too much. However, Zhou Xia had already endured for a very long time. This isn't the first time this little girl has done this. She's trying to disgust me. Do you know what I am right now? Do you know what a rank 1 martial warrior is? Even if I go to the main city, I will be able to enjoy special treatment. Even if I go to the imperial city, I will still be considered as a genius. How can I tolerate being ridiculed by a little girl? Guards. Capture this little girl and bring her out. Not just anyone can sneak in and steal food. Zhou Xia shouted out towards the guards. In actuality, Zhou Xia had already completed a huge reversal tonight. His act of showing off was also very well done. Shi family lowered their heads and now everyone present had lowered their heads as well. This was enough to prove how high Zhou Xia's act was. It was already very good for him to be here, but why did he have to go and shout at a little girl? And furthermore, it was Dong Huangli. Don't you know that her mommy regards her as her life? Don't you know that her daddy is a supreme overlord? You actually dared to openly say that their child stole food? You're really too pretentious, little brother. Hearing that someone said that she stole food, Dong Huangli was not willing to accept it. Feeling wronged, Dong Huangli said, Ollie didn't steal food. Where is she? Why isn't she here yet? Quickly bring this little girl out of here. She's an eyesore. Zhou Xia spoke out once again. Because right now his ego was inflated to the point that he almost couldn't recognize himself anymore. Right at this moment, Fei Bai stood out. Zhou Xia. I was the one who brought her in. Zhou Xia sneered. Fei Bai, who do you think you are? What rights do you have to bring a person in? Letting a dog like you in is already a great honor. Fei Bai was quite angered. A vile person gaining power. A vile person gaining power. Then what about me? Zhixingyi stood out and said. Right now, Zhou Xia is no longer the trash that he was in the daytime. He is currently a rank 1 martial warrior. I can't afford to offend him and I can't afford to offend him. Zhixingyi, you better properly look after the person that you brought over in the future. Don't bring any random cat or dog into our Zhou family. Do you think that my Zhou family's food is something that just anyone can eat? Zhou Xia's words dealt a blow to Dong Huangli. Feeling wronged, Dong Huangli retorted, Ali is not some random cat or dog, Ali has a daddy and mommy. Seeing that Dong Huangli's eyes had already turned red, Xianxia said coldly, Zhou Xia, don't think that just because you became a martial warrior, you can look down on everyone here. Ali is still a child, what are you shouting for? Zhou Xia's expression turned cold. If it was 10 minutes ago I would be able to accept what you said, but right now, no. Xianxia, I can see that you are also from the royal family's faction. Don't be so shameless. Bring along this brat and scram. Zhou Xia shouted out with his hands behind his back. Chapter 453. The scene was completely silent. Even those AI robots had stopped delivering the wine. After feeling Zhou Xia's oppressive aura, they were all trembling in fear. Let alone a human. This is a clamor from a rank 1 martial warrior in this small Long'an city. Who dares to provoke him? Even Lu Qing, who is also a rank 1 martial warrior beside her, doesn't dare to. Because Zhou Xia is only 16 years old. His future is limitless. Xianxia stood at the side and didn't say a word. In her heart she was cursing this trash. If not for him suddenly rising up, how could I have been beaten by my father, and even more so, I lost face in front of so many people. Tomorrow this news will go viral in the entire Long'an city. Even Xianxia thought of the title, Gold Digger gets slapped in the face, Zhou family's young master rises up again, Long'an city. Tremble. Zhou Xia, what kind of man are you to bully a girl and a child? Fei Bai stood in front of Xianxia and Dong Huangli. Zhou Xia mocked. Fei Bai, I already told you just now. Scram back to your bishop faction, don't behave atrociously in my territory. Zhou Xia, so what if you are a rank 1 martial warrior now? With your character you are still trash. Zhou Xia suddenly laughed out loud. This year I have been suppressed too much and now I can finally let it all out. Who can understand this kind of feeling? So what, even if I slap your face, who dares to speak up for you? After finished speaking he slapped towards the empty space. Pop. Fei Bai was directly slapped and crashed into the table beside him, causing the food to scatter all over the floor. Fei Bai. Xianxia cried out in shock, then ran forward. He didn't suffer much, he just got slapped in the face. Slapped across the air. This scene shocked everyone once again. This requires a very strong spirit control to be able to do this, not to mention that the slap was concentrated at a single point. There was also strength and other factors. I didn't expect this Zhou Xia to actually be so powerful. In a few years' time he might even be able to break through martial warrior and become martial master. At that time, even if he goes to the imperial capital, he would still be able to have a seat there, and he might even be able to meet the Federation president. In a few decades he would become a martial king. That would be the 4th martial king in the entire Federation. Everyone felt that they were witnesses to the future martial king. They were all very excited and did not dare to say anything more. Even if Zhou Xia killed someone they would feel that it was only natural. A piece of trash dares to clamor in front of me, Zhou Xia? Beating you is like beating a dog. Drag them out. Zhou Xia coldly snorted. He did not care about anyone's face. In the future his name would spread throughout the entire Ashen Blaze Star or even the entire galaxy. As long as he appeared, everyone had to kneel to welcome him, and he could choose any woman he wanted. Thinking of this, Zhou Xia laughed arrogantly. It seemed like he had suppressed it for too long, that his heart had become distorted. Bang! 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 Suddenly 3 muffled sounds rang out. The guards in the mechas were sent flying, and one of them was deeply embedded in the wall, the kind that couldn't be pulled out. However, this was not the main point. Everyone was dumbfounded as they stared at that small figure. Just now it was her who stretched out her meaty little hand, and as if she was throwing away a doll, she threw away the 2-meter-tall burly man. Fei Bai and Xianxia were also dumbfounded. In their hearts, and even everyone who participated in the test, they subconsciously thought that it was the machine that had malfunctioned, and it wasn't Dong Huangli who sent the 3 men in the mechas flying. However, when they saw how easily Dong Huangli threw away the 3 men in the mechas, they immediately felt dizzy. After all, the people in the mechas have strength as well. According to the level of the mechas that the guards were wearing, they should at least have the strength of a rank 3 martial disciple. Although Zhou Xian was shocked, he quickly felt relieved. After all, knocking down 3 of his family's guards wasn't a big deal. Traces of tears could be seen at the corner of Dong Huangli's eyes. Evidently, she was angered to tears just a moment ago. With a choking tone, Dong Huangli said, "No wonder everyone is ignoring you, so it turns out that you are so hateful. So what? The strong are respected. Right now I am not someone that you all can afford to offend. Gao Ken, if you have the guts, scold me one more time." Zhou Xian looked towards Gao Ken, who was within the crowd. Just a moment ago, Gao Ken was very good at stirring up the crowd, but right now, Gao Ken no longer uttered a word. Gao Ken, who was within the crowd, lowered his head and remained silent. If this Zhou Xian was only a martial artist, I can still scold him one more time. After all, my brother is also a martial artist, but Zhou Xian is a martial artist. Little friend, take a look, who dares to scold me? Zhou Xian spread out both of his hands and had an expression that seemed as if no one in the world dared to scold him. You are an idiot, Ali looks down on you. Dong Huangli couldn't help but scold Zhou Xian. My mother taught me to be a sensible and polite child, but this Zhou Xian is truly too hateful. Ali wants to scold him. Everyone was very shocked. How can this child be so immature to actually scold a martial artist? Not only did he scold a martial artist, he even said that he looks down on a martial artist. Oh my God. If a martial artist were to become angry, no one would be able to withstand his anger. Facing the scolding of a child, furthermore, the child scolded so innocently as if what the child said was a fact. This kind of feeling made Zhou Xian very unhappy. Little wimp, if you have the guts, try scolding me one more time. Zhou Xian's expression turned cold, seemingly not joking at all. Everyone was using their gazes to persuade Dong Huangli not to anger a 16-year-old martial artist anymore. If this goes on, she will definitely get injured. Everyone didn't want to see such an adorable child get injured, but they didn't dare to say anything good about Dong Huangli. Dong Huangli used her sweet voice and shouted out once again, "You are just a salted fish. Even if you turn over a new leaf, you will still be a salted fish." Like father, like daughter, Dong Huangli had learned her father's catchphrase very clearly and logically. Hearing what Dong Huangli said, everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Little ancestor, once you say those words, no one will be able to save you. Meanwhile, Zhou Xian's body emitted out a strong pressure, and with a gloomy expression he immediately disappeared from where he was standing. In a blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Dong Huangli, then lowered his head and looked at the little girl in front of him. There was a very obvious difference between the two's height. Although Zhou Xian was only 16 years old, his height was already 1.78 centimeters, while Dong Huangli's height was only at the knee level. Even if Dong Huangli wanted to look straight into Zhou Xian's eyes, she would have to raise her head. Little wimp. Do you know what you just said just now? Zhou Xian tightly clenched his fists, and a faint white light was emitting out from his fists. It seemed as if white flames were enveloping his fists. Dong Huangli didn't have a trace of fear at all, and she said with a childish voice, "Do you think that you are very powerful? You have never seen what is truly powerful, and only after you have seen what is truly powerful, will you realize that you are actually nothing. In the end, a salted fish will still be a salted fish no matter how much you evolve, you will still not be able to escape from your essence." Everyone felt that although this child's voice was very young, the feeling that this child gave off was just like that of a small adult. In fact, there was even a kind of illusion that this child's body was gradually becoming taller. Chapter 454. Faster Thief. A 16-year-old rank 1 martial warrior actually went to bully a child. Everyone was speechless. This is simply inhumane. Seeing that Dong Huangli was about to be bullied, Xianxia immediately rushed over. However, he was immediately pushed away by Zhou Xian. "Xianxia, you better not meddle in other people's business. Otherwise you will suffer." Seeing that his daughter was actually pushed down as a father, he immediately ran out of the crowd. This foolish child, why did she go and provoke him? Xianxia glared at Zhou Xian angrily. "I'm telling you, if you touch Ali today, her parents will not forgive you." In actuality, Fei Bai and Xianxia felt very guilty. "We promised Ali's father that we would take good care of her, but in the end, we didn't expect that we would encounter such a thing. We are truly ashamed. We don't even have the strength to fight back. If something were to happen, how are we going to explain this to Ali's parents?" That's great, I will beat her to the point that even her parents won't be able to recognize her. The current Zhou Xian was extremely ferocious. Dong Huangli looked at her big brother and big sister who were in pain, then looked at Zhou Xian who was in front of her. At first she thought that he was pitiful and she even stretched out her hand to help him up. Dong Huangli felt deeply humiliated by her actions. This kind of person shouldn't be pitiful. Little fellow, today I will teach you a lesson in place of your parents. After speaking, Zhou Xian raised his hand, seemingly like he was going to give Dong Huangli a big slap. Everyone present couldn't bear to see this scene and turned their faces away. This is too much of a bully. Right now, Dong Huangli had lost her innocence and said gravely, "No one can replace my daddy and mommy." Dong Huangli lightly tapped onto Zhou Xian's chest with her meaty palm, then lightly slapped onto Zhou Xian's chest. However, Dong Huangli's action was extremely fast, to the point that Zhou Xian didn't even notice that Dong Huangli had moved. Dong Huangli's expression was still sinister, and her palm was still raised up. There wasn't the slap that Zhou Xian expected. Instead, when Zhou Xian's slap landed on the air, he lost his balance and fell onto the ground. Everyone was stupefied. Zhou Xian is a rank 1 martial warrior, how is it possible for him to fall onto the ground? Zhou Yutong was stupefied, Shi Hua was also stupefied, Shi Hua was stupefied as well. Zhou Xian, who had fallen to the ground, widened his eyes. How was this possible? The child was right in front of him. Why didn't he hit him? Instead he tripped. It was fine if he didn't get hit, but how could he have fallen? This result made Zhou Xian even angrier. This was the first time he had fought as a first-rank warrior, and it had ended with a fall. How could this be? Zhou Xian suddenly stood up, and while looking at Dong Huangli, his expression became even more sinister and terrifying. Without saying anything, Zhou Xian actually punched towards Dong Huangli. Everyone cried out in alarm. However, Dong Huangli looked faintly at Zhou Xian, then stretched out her small index finger and pointed it onto her fist. The scene froze at this moment. How was that possible? A child actually used his fingers to block the fist of a first-grade martial artist. This was unimaginable and unprecedented. Everyone was stunned, even the robot. You. How is this possible? Zhou Xian said while looking at the short and small Dong Huangli. At this moment he is even doubting whether his strength is fake or not. Dong Huangli said angrily, "Ali already told you. There is always someone better out there. You're just a small warrior. Do you really think you're very powerful? My papa can kill you with a single breath." No, that's impossible. Zhou Xian opened his big eyes and stared fixedly at Dong Huangli as he retreated. Why is this child able to block my fist with his fingers? I'm a first-grade martial artist. Suddenly, a scorching feeling came from his chest. The spiritual energy within his body is actually uncontrollably flowing chaotically. What is going on? Zhou Xian suddenly knelt onto the ground with both of his hands supporting himself on the ground. He seemed to be in a lot of pain. His originally sinister face became even more distorted, and his entire body became completely red. Zhou Yutong hurriedly walked over to his son's side and checked on his son's condition. Immediately his expression sunk. The spiritual energy within his son's body is actually uncontrollably flowing chaotically. Shi Hua tightly wrinkled his brows, then said to Lu Qing, "Go and take a look at his situation." Shi Sahan sneered. Retribution. Serves him right. Everyone was paying attention to the changes that were happening to Zhou Xian. Is this the prelude to another breakthrough? I heard that every time a breakthrough happens it would be very painful. Lu Qing was a lot more powerful than Zhou Yutong. In an instant she discovered the source of the problem, and her expression immediately changed. The spiritual energy within Zhou Xian's body was indeed uncontrollably flowing chaotically. However, this was not an ordinary kind of uncontrollably flowing chaotically. This also meant that Zhou Xian has been crippled. How is this possible? How can a first-grade martial artist be crippled so easily? Unless the person is a martial master-level expert. Lu Qing immediately tore open Zhou Xian's clothes, and a small handprint could be seen on Zhou Xian's chest. Then she looked towards Dong Huangli. I didn't even see when the handprint was placed on my chest. Or could it be that this child is already so terrifying that I didn't even notice it? Lord Martial Artist, what happened to my son? Zhou Yutong had a bad premonition. Lu Qing shook her head, then walked back to Xihua's side and told Xihua about the situation. After listening to Lu Qing's report, Xihua shook his head. What a disappointment. Everyone saw the expressions on these people's faces. This Zhou Xian isn't breaking through, there is another possibility. Some of the youngsters immediately revealed a smile on their faces. Great. Even the heavens have opened their eyes. Father, I feel terrible. Zhou Xian grabbed his father's arm and begged for help like a child. He didn't have the courage he had just now. Zhou Yutong's expression remained calm. Zhou Xian turned his head around and looked towards Dong Huangli, who was not far away. What did you do to me? Did he poison me? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Zhou Xian was finally unable to suppress himself anymore, and a mouthful of blood sprayed out from his mouth. A powerful spiritual energy erupted out from his body, and the spiritual energy soared straight into the sky. Different from before, a few minutes ago the spiritual energy descended from the sky, but right now the spiritual energy was indeed coming out from his body, just like returning the spiritual energy back to the sky. Ah! Zhou Xian's unwilling roars could be heard. After quite a while, everything returned back to normal. Zhou Xian had only vomited out a mouthful of blood and it wasn't a big deal. However, right now he felt that he would rather be dead than alive. My strength. My strength. Where did my strength go? Gradually, Zhou Xian began to turn crazy as he looked at his own hands in disbelief. It's you. It's you. Zhou Xian, who was in a state of madness, suddenly stood up, then ran towards Dong Huangli at the speed of a normal person. Right now Fei Bai and Zhixingyi are the heavens. Zhixingyi directly slapped Zhou Xian away. How could Zhou Yutong endure this? Surround him. Chapter 455. Zhou Yutong, what do you think you're doing? As Zhixingyi's father, Ziche asked angrily. Your son was a warrior earlier and everyone tolerated it. But now your son is nothing. Do you think everyone can stand it? No wonder Zhou Xian was so arrogant. He must have inherited it. Zhou Yutong, you've gone too far. We're all part of the royal family and you actually sent troops. Some of the big shots in the crowd began to speak. Your son was very arrogant just now, very arrogant. But now your son is worse than a dog. What other capital do you have? Tucking one's tail between one's legs was the hard truth. Zhou Yutong, your son is no longer a warrior. Where does your confidence come from? How shameless. This person's words were very straightforward. Just now your son was boasting shamelessly and didn't put anyone in his eyes. Do you think anyone would help you? He was thinking too much. Zhou Yutong, I'll report to the higher-ups tomorrow to remove your Zhou clan's name. My royal family doesn't need someone like you. The one who spoke seemed to be quite powerful. Zhou Yutong's face alternated between white and green. When his son had just risen, those people didn't dare to say or do anything. Now that his son was in trouble, they instantly turned their backs on him. Zhou Xian struggled to get up. He was unwilling to accept this reality. He pointed at the crowd and shouted, I'm a warrior. You can't do this. Believe it or not, I can destroy all of you in minutes. At this moment, Gaokan laughed out loud and said, Zhou Xian, you have to understand the situation. You're no longer a warrior. You are nothing. You are still the same trash from before. That despicable person. Bullshit, I'm still a warrior. I will still be a martial king in the future. All of you better remember this. I, Zhou Xian, will become a martial king in the near future. When that time comes, I will make you suffer. Zhou Xian roared hoarsely. How could they accept such a sudden change? A few minutes ago he was still in control of the situation. Everyone looked at him with fear, afraid of offending the future martial king. However, a few minutes later everything was gone. Although it had only been a few minutes, it had been an earth-shattering change to his life. In actuality, Dong Huangli was also very smart right now. This meant that Yi Hua's teachings were on point. It was easy to kill, but it was very difficult to make others despair. Back then, when Yi Hua besieged Heaven's Mansion, Yi Hua had taught Yi Hua that he must first give others hope, then destroy his own hope and from there reach a state of deep despair. That kind of despair was even more painful than instant death. Right now, looking at Zhou Xian, who was shouting in despair, the corner of Dong Huangli's mouth curved up slightly. What Daddy said is right, this kind of person should be made to feel despair. As long as I cripple him, the people that he offended will once again feel disdain towards him, just like right now. Everyone has the right to punish him. Don't look at how young Dong Huangli is. In actuality, she knows a lot and she is also very smart. Crippling Dong Huangli and killing Dong Huangli are two different outcomes. Although killing Dong Huangli feels great, Dong Huangli would become a little devil. Dong Huangli is an obedient child and she has never killed anyone. As such, the former were more intelligent. He did not even need to make a move. Their saliva could drown Zhou Xian to death. They were too hateful and too arrogant. The people of the Zhou clan were very flustered. They all looked at their clan leader. Zhou Yutong had no choice but to seek help from his in-laws, hoping that they would put in a good word for his sake. Brother Before Zhou Yutong could finish his words, Shi Hua said faintly, "It's getting late, I will be heading back first. As for the marriage, I think that they are indeed not suitable for each other, so let's just forget about it." Zhou Yutong froze on the spot. The world is so cold. Just now, if not for Zhou Xian possessing the strength of a warrior, how could Shi Hua possibly lower his head and even press his daughter onto the ground to apologize? Also, just now this little bastard didn't even give me any face at all, so why should I give you any face? Shi Sihan laughed out loud, then pointed at Zhou Xian who was on the ground and said, "Zhou Xian, if you kneel down and kowtow in front of me right now, I will take you in as my toy." Shi Sihan, I will still say the same thing, you will regret it. Life is full of ups and downs, don't bully a young man because he is poor. When Zhou Xian said this, the whole place was silent. Dong Huangli said, "This is really the third time." In an instant, everyone burst into laughter. "Zhou Xian, you actually have the face to say such words? You are simply arrogant to the extreme. If it was me, I would have dug a hole in the ground and escaped." Hearing everyone's ridicule, Zhou Xian seemed to have lost a lot of his strength. He sat powerlessly on the ground, and the domineering aura he had a moment ago was nowhere to be seen. If Zhou Xian didn't go and provoke Dong Huangli just now, Dong Huangli wouldn't have looked for trouble and would have just stood at the side and watched how you act cool. But you don't want to live anymore, you insist on seeking death. If Yi Hua and Dong Huang Baiji were here, how could they allow their daughter to suffer even the slightest bit of grievance? After all, little Ali was Yi Hua and Dong Huang Baiji's flesh and blood. Zhou Xian, I didn't expect that your talent in making jokes is quite good. In the future, if you don't have any money, you can go and become a clown. Especially your catchphrase, it really makes people laugh. After finished speaking, Shi Sihan left together with her father. Looking at the leaving spaceship, Zhou Xian shouted out loudly, "Shi Sihan, you will regret this. When I rise to power again, I will slowly torture you." Dong Huangli reminded, "You won't be able to rise to power again because your spirit root has already been crippled by me." Spirit root has been crippled. Zhou Xian felt as if he was struck by lightning and his head was buzzing. Everyone knows what it means to have one's spirit root crippled. From now on, I will just be an ordinary person. When the youngsters heard that Zhou Xian's spirit root had been crippled, they immediately felt relieved. Not only the youngsters, even some of the elders felt relieved when they heard that Zhou Xian's spirit root had disappeared. They were a bit worried that Zhou Xian would awaken his spirit root again. If that really happens, I will have to kneel down and lick Zhou Xian's spirit root. But from the looks of it now, there is no need for that anymore. It's good that my spirit root has been crippled. It's good that my spirit root has been crippled. From this, it could be seen that Zhou Xian's position in everyone's heart was no different than a street rat. Why did you do this to me? Zhou Xian questioned Dong Huangli. Dong Huangli was very angry, and yet she still has the face to ask Dong Huangli why. Because you are truly very hateful. Furthermore, you are the worst person that I have ever seen when it comes to acting cool. Even that idiot crown prince is much better than you. At the very least, he is still able to act cool with his brain while you are indeed brainless. Furthermore, you even bully children, you are truly shameless. Dong Huangli's words caused Zhou Xian to feel very uncomfortable. Chapter 456. Once again, no one made a sound. They had also expressed their stance. They did not want to get involved in this mess. Who knew what would happen next? To put it bluntly, it was all for the sake of benefits. They would not do anything that did not benefit them. However, they seemed to have forgotten a problem. At this moment, Zish Qingyi said in a deep voice, "Zhou Xian, I think you're crazy. You're out of your mind. Have you forgotten who crippled you? Yes. Previously, Zhou Xian had the strength of a first-grade martial warrior. For Dong Huangli to be able to cripple him without anyone noticing, it could be seen just how frightening her strength was. Zhou Xian was able to suppress these people as a warrior, let alone Ali. The crowd began to make noises. They all realized that they had to curry favor with this little girl. This was the true future star. Zhou Yutong, I dare you to touch a child today. If you dare to touch a child, we will definitely surround and annihilate you. That's right. He's such a big man, yet he's bullying a child. Shameless. The father and son of the Zhou family were on the verge of collapse. Who is the one bullying who now? It's fine if you don't help the weak, but you even speak up for the murderer. Zhou Yutong said in a deep voice. Don't forget that she crippled my son. Fei Bai said in a low voice. That's your son's fault. Who asked him to provoke Ali? Should Ali be bullied by you? Gao Can, who was in the crowd, shouted. That's right, is your son the only one allowed to bully others? Who do you think you are? This is a world where the strong are respected. They have only crippled your son and not killed him, which is already giving you a lot of face. The crowd immediately echoed in agreement. Dong Huangli let out a breath. These people sure know how to take advantage of the situation. If Dong Huangli was just an ordinary child, she would definitely be bullied to death. Enough. Zhou Xian shouted angrily as he slowly stood up. Following Zhou Xian's angry roar, everyone quietened down. They had no idea what this person was going to do. Zhou Xian suddenly picked up a small knife and placed it on his neck. Don't you want me dead? Then I'll die in front of you. No one had expected Zhou Xian to do such a thing, threatening to kill himself. But who are you threatening with death? Are you kidding me? Was he trying to gain everyone's sympathy? Zhou Xian, if you dare commit suicide today, I'll kowtow to you every time I see you in the future, Gao Can said loudly. His words were echoed by the younger generation. But here came the problem. He was already dead. How could they meet? This hypothesis doesn't seem to be valid. However, it seemed like no one tried to persuade Zhou Xian. They sighed endlessly. It was really a failure to be a human being to this extent. All right. You guys are great. Zhou Xian will keep my life for now. I will slowly settle the score with you in the future. After saying that, Zhou Xian tossed away the knife in his hand as if he had accepted the fact. This action really made people speechless. What happened to suicide? He went back on his words. Fei Bai chuckled. You're still as unlikable as ever. Xianxia nodded. If he had just committed suicide, he would have sighed. Who knew that it was just an act? Zhou Xian cupped his hands at his father and said, Father, don't worry. I won't let you down. Even if I lose my spiritual root, I still have a way. I'll cultivate in seclusion now. Zhou Yutong let out a deep sigh. There are too many unforeseen events that happened tonight, and this old heart of his is a bit unable to take it anymore. Following Zhou Xian's departure, Dong Huangli didn't say anything. After all, I have to give others hope. Because by doing so, despair will seem even more despair. After he finished cultivating in seclusion, he went to look for Zhou Yutong, only to find out that Zhou Yutong was still the same as before. I miss Daddy and Mommy. The outside world is so complicated. Ali is still a child and I only know how to act coquettishly to Daddy and kiss Mommy. I don't want this kind of life. Big brother Fei, big sister Qingyi, Ali wants to go back. Dong Huangli mumbled. Dong Huangli really wanted to jump into her daddy's embrace and sleep. Xianxia carried Dong Huangli and said with a slight smile, All right, big sister will send you home. Xianxia's father gave his daughter a look, seemingly wanting his daughter to properly accompany this child and build a good relationship with him. Towards her father's look, Xianxia was naturally aware of it. However, she didn't want that to happen. Soon after, she left Zhou family with Fei Bai. A small interlude ended just like that. However, if Dong Huangli wants to become as pretentious as her father, she would have to practice a lot more. After all, it wasn't something that could be achieved in a short period of time. On the other side, Yihua brought along his 2 wives and began to entertain himself. Of course, this was something that happened an hour ago. Shi Tingting respectfully led the way at the front, while Yihua carried his 2 wives and walked at the back. At this moment they had already arrived at the bar's passageway. This bar was very high-tech and from time to time, it would change its scenery. Snow, ocean, outer space. However, to the locals this wasn't a strange sight at all. Seeing that the empress was a bit worried, Yihua asked faintly, "What's wrong? Are you still worried about Ali?" "I'm still worried," Donghuang Baiji mumbled. Yihua was also able to understand Donghuang Baiji's feelings. As a mother she would naturally be like this. "Don't worry, isn't Ali very powerful right now? Last time she was even able to swing that red giant around." Donghuang Baiji immediately went into a daze, then asked towards Yihua, "How did you know about Ali being in Voidless Realm?" "Yihua, that crown prince came that day, you couldn't have come as well, right?" Xianxia asked. I think so," Yihua said hesitantly. "Having such a smart wife is also quite troublesome. If I don't pay attention I will be exposed." Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji could be seen pinching Yihua's face with a fierce look on their faces. "Alright, only the two of you would dare to pinch my face. That day weren't you very happy watching us being bullied?" Xianxia pouted her mouth and had a wronged look on her face. Yihua laughed lightly. "Xianxia, so it turns out that I only found out about my image in your hearts that day. To be honest, I am getting goosebumps all over my body." The two wives rolled their eyes and pinched their husbands. This man is simply a scoundrel. Seeing that his wives are being bullied, he is even laughing at the side. "Actually, Ali was the one who secretly informed me that day. Weren't we quarreling with each other? Thus I didn't show up. However, I believe in your strength, so I didn't show up." Donghuang Baiji snorted. "You just don't love us anymore." The empress's coquettish behavior made Yihua unable to bear it anymore. He lowered his head and kissed her. Shi Tingting lowered her head and walked. The relationship between Sir and Madame sure is good. To think that they would kiss each other even while walking. "Yihua," Xianxia shouted out. Chapter 457. Although I didn't appear that day, that crown prince dared to be so disrespectful to you. I have already avenged this enmity, you all don't have to worry. Yihua put away his smile and said coldly. "Those who dare to bully my women can only be compensated with death. Their souls will be tormented in hell." Xianxia intimately leaned on her husband's side and asked curiously, "How did you help us take revenge?" "Kill all of them," Yihua said coldly, then looked at his wife. "Isn't she very touched?" Hearing that, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji went into a daze. "Yihua, even if you don't smoke now you still like to act cool." Xianxia charmingly rolled her eyes at her husband. Donghuang Baiji also said with a smile, "That's right, our Yihua is getting better and better at boasting." "It's true. I never lie." Yihua appeared to be very serious. "They actually don't believe me and they actually doubt my strength. Seems like when I return home tonight I have to let them know of my strength." Upon hearing what Yihua said, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji laughed even louder. In the past he had said that he would only touch a woman once. Look at him now. Donghuang Baiji and Xianxia would definitely talk about this for the rest of their lives. However, Donghuang Baiji was glad that Yihua was lying. Xianxia said coquettishly, "You still dare to say that you're not lying? Didn't we get swindled by you? I even gave birth to your children. That's because I love you." Facing against Yihua's sweet words and honeyed words, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji's hearts were truly filled with sweetness. They tightly snuggled up to their husband's side and expressed their love for him. Yihua also enjoyed this moment very much. Lightly hugging onto the two of them, Yihua kissed onto his beloved wife's forehead. "Yo, isn't this Tingting?" "Hello, sir, madam." Fengwulvlan, whom he had seen in the afternoon, suddenly appeared. She walked over with a smile and beside her was a tall and strong man. She changed men really quickly. However, Yihua realized that this man was different. At least he had a little bit of strength, and judging from Fengwulvlan's intentions, it seemed like she was trying to curry favor with him. Fengwulvlan took the initiative to introduce. "This is Zhou Xian from the main city. He's a second-grade warrior." Shi Tingting finally understood. She had brought a man to show off. As for that gentleman, when he saw Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji he went into a daze. I didn't expect that there would be such beautiful women in a small city like this. He had never seen such a beauty even in the imperial capital. But this man actually had one in each hand. What a waste of a beauty. "Hello, I am from the main city's aristocratic faction, Zhou Xian." After finished speaking he stretched out his hand towards Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji. If he was able to touch their hands, it would be a very comfortable thing. However, it was a pity that Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji did not have the slightest desire to stretch out their hands. Beauties really have character. It seems that tonight will not be too boring. Sir, I have a game over there. Do you want to participate? You'll be very happy. Zhou Xian sent out an invitation. All right. Yi Hua immediately agreed. Speaking of which, he often acted tough, but he rarely did it in front of his wives. Today he had to show them that he was not only the jealous king of the cultivation world, but also the supreme king of acting tough. Tonight he was going to shock them and let them know how deep his love was. To be precise, the more he acted, the more he loved them. Seems like I have a goal tonight, which is to move them and make them take the initiative to send me a bed invitation tonight. Shi Tingting, who was at the side, said softly, Sir, they don't come with good intentions. There are many people that came from the main city and they are also very arrogant. Yi Hua nodded his head. I hope that they will be arrogant, if not, how would I have an excuse to cause trouble? After all, I am a law-abiding citizen, I never do bad things, and I also don't kill people. I even organized my subordinates to encircle and exterminate the monsters in Long'an City. I should really be given an Outstanding Citizen Award. Everyone, please follow me. Zhou Xian smiled politely, but his hazy expression betrayed him. And Shi Tingting was obviously here to show off. So what if you, Shi Tingting, tied up a martial artist? I am a rank 2 martial warrior, and furthermore I am someone that came from the main city. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji still don't know what Yi Hua was trying to do. In order to satisfy her husband's desire to act cool, I will shout 666 later on and support her husband. After entering the bar, Yi Hua discovered the advantage of technology. It is indeed very refreshing. However, the music seems to be more or less the same, all of them are electronic sounds. Seems like music doesn't differentiate between galaxies. The hall downstairs was a place where ordinary people would play, and the rich people would open a floating private room upstairs. Walking into the luxurious floating private room, it was as if walking into the deep sea, and the people that were sitting in the private room felt as if they were sitting at the bottom of the sea. Even when you stretch out your hand and touch the creatures at the bottom of the sea, the creatures at the bottom of the sea would still react as if it was real. This is too mystical. 3 men could be seen sitting in the private room, and the one beside them should be the so-called princess. There were also 5 bodyguards standing around them, just that the bodyguards were not wearing mechs and they were all just some mediocre martial artists. However, it is still enough for me to act cool in front of my wife. I hope that they won't be too terrified. I, the Supreme Overlord, am going to play something big tonight. I have to make those small shrimps back off in the face of difficulties, if not, wouldn't I be annoyed to death by them? And when the 3 people in the private room saw Yi Hua's appearance, when they saw Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji, they were immediately captivated. Why are these 2 women so beautiful? It is hard to believe that there are such women in this world. They are so beautiful that there is no bottom line. Adding on that faintly discernible temperament, I really feel as if I have them. No wonder this Zhou Xian was late. It turns out that he arranged beautiful women to come over. As for this man, I will think of a way to arrange him later. Hello, I am Dai Anren, who came from the main city. I am from the aristocratic faction. Hello, I am Shui Gao, who came from the main city. I am from the aristocratic faction. Hello, I am Zhao Gang, who came from the main city. I am from the aristocratic faction. The 3 men stood up courteously and stretched out their hands towards Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji. There was no other reason, just that they wanted to touch Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji's hands. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji ignored them. Let them fly into a rage, then Yi Hua will have an excuse to act cool. After that, I will just have to look at my husband with my beautiful eyes and satisfy that vanity of Yi Hua's. Being Yi Hua's wife is truly tiring. To think that I still have to worry about things like this for him. The 3 of you, it's fine. The 2 ladies are people who already have families. Zhou Xian smiled faintly. However, the 2 ladies will not have families later on. The man who had a big bald head was Zhao Gang, and just by looking at him one could tell that he was a bad guy. If he was placed in a television drama, he would be a henchman, the kind that would die the moment he appeared. So it is the 2 madams. I am truly sorry. Zhao Gang said modestly, appearing to be very polite. Chapter 458. Have a seat, since we are together we are friends. Shui Gao called out, and the drinking partners beside him walked out of the private room. After all, when he saw such a beauty and then looked at the drinking partners beside him, he simply wanted to vomit. Yi Hua hugged onto his wife and sat at the side, quietly waiting. I wonder what's the difference between aliens and humans. What is called a beauty, they are the real beauties that I have never seen before in my entire life. Just that, being hugged by this man, I really don't feel good. Furthermore, these two beauties are actually snuggling in the man's embrace, seemingly very obedient. This is simply unbelievable. They are so outstanding, they should not be worthy of this kind of man. Shi Tingting sat at the side vigilantly, feeling that something bad is going to happen. And that Si Wenxuan also hugged Feng Wolflan and sat down. The corner of his mouth carried a disdainful smile. Shui Gao, where did your subordinate Lu Qing go? Why didn't he come out with you today? Zhao Gang asked. Shui Gao spread out both of his arms and leaned on the AI sofa, then said faintly, I asked him to go to Shi family to do something. You even sent a rank 1 martial warrior out to do something. You are truly amazing. Zhao Gang laughed lightly. The meaning behind his words was, look at us, even a rank 1 martial warrior can be used. A martial warrior is just a bodyguard. Dai Anren laughed lightly. My family recently hired a martial master from the Imperial City. He is very valiant. Next time when there is a chance, I will bring him out to let you guys experience. Young Master Dai is truly amazing. This little girl admires you. Feng Wolflan said sweetly, her slender hands caressing Si Wenxuan's thigh, hinting crazily. Dai Anren shook his head. The Imperial City is the place where experts gather. This place is filled with martial warriors and martial masters. Without going to the Imperial City, one would not know how big this blue blaze star is. That's right, this Long-En city is also just a small place. Even a martial warrior is able to proclaim himself as a king here. This is truly a pity. Zhao Gang's words were saying, a martial warrior is nothing. You guys have not seen an existence that is even more amazing. More importantly, he was reminding the two beauties that they should look at the long term and not snuggle in the embrace of a martial warrior. That is something that has no future. With your looks, it is even enough to be the president's mistress. Who knows, you guys might even be able to climb up to a martial king, and in the future you guys can enjoy glory, splendor and wealth. Young Master Dai, I heard your family is preparing to move to the imperial capital? Shui Gao indifferently asked. Dai Anren pursed his lips and took a sip of wine. All the clans are trying their best to get into the imperial capital, but the waters of the imperial capital are so deep. If they're not careful, their entire family might be finished. Without sufficient resources, it's really not easy to go to the imperial capital. Young Master Dai, going to the imperial capital to mingle, don't forget us brothers. Si Wenxian picked up his wine cup, the latter clinking it with a smile. That's only natural. Following that, the four of them started to talk about important matters such as who had become rich, who had broken through, how much money they had, how many houses they had demolished, and how much the stock market could fall. In any case, they were not going to buy it. What he was trying to say was, you people from small places don't understand the lives of people like us. I'm telling you to broaden your horizons. Feng Wolflan, on the other hand, was mesmerized by the story. She really envied those who lived in the imperial capital. They could even walk out with pride. And even Yi Hua wanted to leave. You guys have been laying the groundwork for so long, yet you still don't do anything. I, the Supreme Overlord, will go and find someone else. Seeing that my two beloved wives are about to fall asleep, I might as well carry them to the bed to sleep. May I know how I should address Mr. Shui Gao suddenly asked. Yi Hua immediately became spirited. You guys are finally not boasting anymore. Just call me Boss Yi. Yi Hua said indifferently. Boss Yi? The four of them were a bit stupefied. We are young masters that came from the main city. We have noble bloodlines, our strengths are all martial warriors, and our underlings are all martial warriors. And you actually want a martial warrior to call you boss? May I ask where your courage comes from? Such an arrogant man. I will teach you a lesson later. Trash. For the sake of those two beauties, I will endure it for now. Boss Yi, are you interested in playing a few rounds? Dai Anren asked indifferently. Later on, I will beat you up into a dog and you still call yourself Boss Yi? What are you acting for? Trash. Yi Hua asked indifferently. What are we playing? Si Wenxian laughed lightly. With a wave of his hand, a virtual console appeared. Yi Hua felt that the floating private room was moving. Seems like it is going to another place. Let's bet. Zhou Xian smiled. I like to gamble. I hope that you will be able to pay back the money that you owe me on time. If not, your consequences will be even worse than Xiao Yi's. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji, who were originally squinting their eyes, heard what Donghuang Baiji said. My husband is actually going to go and gamble? And when Xianxia thought back to that time when she gambled, she felt that it was truly exciting. Very quickly, the hovering private room reached its destination. Suddenly, the private room became transparent, as if they were standing in the air, and beneath their feet was a large arena. A bloody battle was taking place inside. Following the bloody battle, the audience's excitement was ignited, and the entire arena seemed to be on the verge of lifting. In order to make a living, many people would take the risk to participate in the arena. If they won, they could get a large sum of money. If they lost, they would be gone. Moreover, players with a winning streak would gain popularity. They could even make it to the main city's arena in one go. How are we betting? Yi Hua asked curiously. Who do you want to bet on? Zhou Xian asked with a smile. Yi Hua nodded his head. This is very simple. How big is the bet? Yi Hua continued asking. Boss Yi, you can bet however big you want. Shui Gao said with a disdainful tone. Yi Hua smelled the fragrance of Xianxia's hair and said faintly, I like to bet on family property. After hearing that, Xianxia really wanted to laugh. He's here again. After hearing that, the four went into a daze and soon after they laughed. Isn't this funny? Boss Yi sure knows how to joke. Zhao Gang laughed. People who gamble on family property are usually lunatics. Yi Hua said in a deep voice, aren't you all very rich? After saying so much just now, you all still don't dare to bet on this? This is provocation. This is provocation. How can you say no in front of a beauty? Even if you can't, you still have to do it. Boss Yi, since you said that you want to bet on family property, may I know how much family property do you have? Dai Anren questioned. This man is simply too arrogant to actually boast shamelessly in front of the main city's four big princes, and even said that you want to bet on family property. I'm just afraid that you can't afford to lose. Right now, Yi Hua definitely did not count on Shi Tingting anymore and decided to take action himself. Yi Hua took out the trashiest weapon from his storage ring and threw it onto the table. This is my family property. Looking at the broadsword that was emitting a faint green aura on the table, the four big princes were stupefied. Their eyes were opened wide and their mouths were wide open. Shi Tingting cried out in surprise, Mister. This is a cosmos artifact. Chapter 459. I have so many trashy weapons, so I might as well take them out for a gamble. If I took out a slightly better weapon, their hearts might not be able to take it, but even if it was the most trashy weapon, they still seem to be extremely shocked. I like this kind of expression on their faces, it makes me very happy. However, Yi Hua suddenly felt a pain on his waist. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji looked at Yi Hua with a resentful gaze, seemingly asking why he didn't let us use such a weapon and instead hid it. Yi Hua hugged onto his wives. How can you all use such a trashy weapon? It is not worthy of my women. Shi Tingting, how much do you think this flowing lotus blade is worth? Yi Hua asked. Shi Tingting was astonished, then said fearfully, Mr. Cosmos artifacts are priceless. Right now, the four princes were still in a state of shock. This is a fucking cosmos artifact. I have only heard of it, but I have never seen it before. Even the current Martial King doesn't have a cosmos artifact, and it seems like only the president has such a weapon. If I were to win this cosmos artifact, wouldn't I be able to ascend to the heavens in one go? Although this trashy weapon is nothing to Yi Hua, after all, it came from the hands of an overlord. No matter how trashy a weapon is, it is still a treasure to others. Just like Hong Tai, who was killed by Yi Hua, the reason why he collected so many ancient godly items and tools was all to forge a primordial godly item. And this flowing lotus blade was a primordial godly item. And it was the most trashy primordial godly item. Yi Hua let go of his wife's willow branch and looked at the four men in front of him. I will use this blade to gamble all of your belongings. The four men inhaled a mouthful of cold air. They were completely stunned. They didn't dare to say anything and they didn't dare to do anything. The confidence that they had a few minutes ago had long been destroyed by them. Right now Xitingting really didn't know who they were. To actually take out a cosmos artifact so easily and to even use it to gamble. Even if the four of them took out all of their belongings, they still wouldn't be able to buy a cosmos artifact. Mister's really crazy. The appearance of a cosmos artifact will definitely cause a huge commotion. When the time comes, everyone will come to snatch it and that will be troublesome. Mister is really muddle-headed. As for Feng Lalon, she sat there in a daze the entire time, staring at the universe god weapon on the table. She never thought that there would be a day when she would be so close to a universe god weapon. Boss Yi, let us discuss this with our family. Dai Anren said solemnly and immediately contacted his family. It was the same for the other three. Only by combining the strength of the four clans would they be able to obtain this cosmos god artifact. Yi Hua waved his hand. You can discuss whatever you want with me. In any case, I, the Supreme Overlord, will definitely win. After a long time, the four young masters of the main city had an answer. Zhou Xian said in a deep voice, each of us will pay 50 billion gold coins. That's 200 billion gold coins in total. What do you think, Boss Yi? Yi Hua didn't reply to Xitingting's question. Instead he asked Xitingting, is 50 billion worth all that they should have? Xitingting furrowed her brows slightly. Although it was a simple question, it was also related to when it came to choosing a side. If she chose the wrong side, then she would face terrible consequences. Should he stand on Mister's side, or should he stand on the side of the main city's four young masters? Since Mister is able to take out a cosmos god artifact, he is definitely not simple. Since you are gambling your family's fortune, then I, Xitingting, can only gamble the fate of my clan. Sir, 50 billion per family is not all of their assets. The assets of each family should be around 150 billion. Xitingting's words caused the fourth young master to gnash his teeth fiercely. If I succeed this time, I will definitely kill this woman. Yi Hua held onto the flowing lotus blade that was on the table, and immediately a green light shone out from the blade. You all are very dishonest. Boss Yi, we can talk things out. Right now it is late at night and it is a bit difficult to mobilize such a huge amount of funds. Zhao Gang explained hurriedly. Yi Hua didn't pay attention to Zhao Gang and asked Xitingting once again, is what he said the truth? Xitingting shook her head. If I have the heart to deal with it, I will be able to finish it within 10 minutes or so. Right now, the fourth young master wished that he could eat Xitingting's meat, then cut it into pieces and roast the meat to eat. I will give you all 10 minutes. If you all don't want to gamble, then forget it, I will go and find someone else. Boss Yi, wait a moment, I will contact them again. Shui Gao said hurriedly. The fourth young master began contacting their families again. From the tone of their conversation, it could be heard that they were very nervous, and also very much wanted to possess the Cosmos God artifact. 10 minutes later. Boss Yi, the time is too tight. Each of us has 100 billion gold coins, and the remaining 50 billion gold coins will be transferred to us in half an hour. Zhou Xian said gravely. 600 billion gold coins. Yi Hua felt that it should be able to be used as the traveling expenses this time. Xitingting, go and see if they are lying or not. Yi Hua said. Xitingting opened up the system and compared the cards on the table. Mister, there is no mistake. Let's begin then. Yi Hua threw the flowing lotus blade in his hand onto the table, as if he was throwing a fruit knife, causing the fourth young master's heart to ache. At the same time, the fourth young master was also curious, just what kind of person is this man, to actually casually take out a god equipment? This is truly too unbelievable. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it even if I was beaten to death. After all, the rarity of a god equipment was truly shameful. If one were to get hold of a god equipment, one would be able to dominate the entire world. However, after getting hold of the flowing lotus blade, how are we going to split the flowing lotus blade is also a problem. However, this is only the follow-up. A projection could be seen appearing in front of the few people's eyes. This projection was the contestant for the next round. Yi Hua took a glance at the contestants. A dwarf from the elf race and a 3 meters tall minotaur, and the dwarf minotaur was a consecutive champion. This was a one-sided battle. As long as one's brain wasn't damaged, they would bet on the minotaur to win. Therefore, the odds of the minotaur winning was very low, while the odds of the dwarf minotaur winning was as high as 1,000. You guys choose first, I will choose the opponent that you guys are against. Yi Hua said faintly, then held onto his wife's waist with both of his hands and slowly caressed her waist. This is simply the enjoyment of a deity. Meanwhile, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji snuggled into their husband's embrace and quietly watched as their husband acted cool. To them this was also a kind of enjoyment. Their husband's strength gave them an unlimited sense of security. Needless to say, after the misunderstanding was resolved, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji became even more reliant on Yihua. Yihua also referred to Lai Gu's experience, not letting the two of them have the time to think about anything else. Especially Donghuang Baiji, she felt so comfortable that she didn't even want to get out of bed. Hearing Yihua's words, the fourth young master immediately became happy. The four of them discussed for a bit, then Dai Anren said with a smile, "Boss Yi, we will choose the beast man. Rodney. I will choose the elf race's Brett then." Yihua said faintly. Chapter 460. Boss Yi, since you have made your choice, then don't regret it. Zhao Gang reminded Yihua. This bet is already very obvious, we are going to win for sure. Yihua said coldly, since I said it, then it won't be fake. I am trustworthy. This sentence caused Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji to stretch out their hands and pinch Yihua's waist. Do you still have trustworthy? You are a big liar. These two women pinched my waist again in this entire universe. Only you two would dare to do this. Then I wish Boss Yi good luck. Wen Xian laughed lightly, appearing to be very confident. Yihua said indifferently, my good luck will always be with me, there is no need for you to worry about me. Could it be that I am so awesome? So it turns out that I have a cosmos artifact with me. I reckon that the two beauties only followed me because they have their eyes on that cosmos artifact. If the cosmos artifact is gone, the two beauties will definitely look for someone else. And whoever who has a cosmos artifact will definitely be able to obtain the hearts of the beauties. If a beauty like this were to fall into his hands, he would definitely be able to customize a super comfortable waterbed. In the arena, the host's introduction rang out. Next, let's welcome the Tauren who has 5 consecutive victories. Rodney. Along with the host's introduction, the iron gate at the side slowly opened, and a 3 meters tall Tauren could be seen breathing heavily as he slowly walked out. The Tauren was wearing simple chainmail, and his right hand was holding onto an iron axe. The axe was stained with blood, and all of the blood belonged to his opponent. Rodney let out a beast-like howl, raising his aura to the peak. Along with the howl, the blood of the spectators also started boiling. During the day they worked under pressure, and during the night they began to release their natural instincts, thirsting to see a bloody battle. Look at Rodney's strong muscles, that explosive power in his arms. The iron axe in his hand is already unable to endure the thirst. Will he be able to obtain the 6th victory? Next, let's welcome the elf. Brett. The iron gate opposite of Rodney opened, and a 1m tall dwarf could be seen walking out slowly. His body was wearing a simple white cloth, and his appearance was very delicate and pretty. His big eyes were dark green in color, and his ears were very long and very pointy. He had the characteristics of the elf race, and his skin was very fair. In his hand was a wooden bow, and on his back was a quiver that had 5 arrows inserted into it. However, could the iron arrowhead really pierce through the Tauren's skin? It was obviously very difficult. The newcomer, Brett, is proficient in archery. Coupled with his petite build, his speed is definitely not bad. Although there is a huge disparity in strength, I believe that Brett will have a good result. Everyone, please wait and see. Needless to say, following the host's words, Brett's bets increased once more. After all, the odds were really attractive. If he really won, that would be awesome. The host looked at the bets and was secretly delighted. How could this shorty win? Brett bit his lips tightly, his right hand tightly grasping the bow and arrow. His eyes were a little confused, especially when he looked around at the dense crowd and the cheers in his ears. He was even more at a loss. No, Brett. You can't be afraid. Grandpa is still waiting for you to return. You have to use the money you won to treat Grandpa's illness. Otherwise Grandpa would die. Once he thought of his grandfather lying on the sickbed, Brett's gaze became more resolute. If he won this battle, he would receive a reward of 1,000 gold coins, and his grandfather would be able to keep his life. He had to win. Even if he had to risk his life, he had to win. This was life. Yihua was sitting in the sky, gambling a few 100 billion gold coins, and some people were indeed risking their lives for the sake of 1,000 gold coins. Whether this was a misfortune or a natural phenomenon, no one could say for sure. Yi Hua, who was sitting in the floating private room, saw Brett through the big screen. That resolute gaze of Brett made Yi Hua recall his weak self in the past. Back then, those days were filled with hardship and danger. Other than training, he also had to hide from humans, hide under dirty swamps, and hide in stinky latrines. Those long days were still fresh in Yi Hua's mind. However, he also kept on telling himself that only by becoming stronger would he not be bullied by others. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to control his own fate. In Yi Hua's heart, working hard would at least give him a trace of hope. If he didn't work hard, he would be a salted fish for his entire life. Even if he managed to change his fate, he would still be a salted fish. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji looked at Brett, who was on the big screen. They couldn't bear to see Brett, but they didn't dare to say it to Yi Hua, in case Yi Hua said that they were soft-hearted again. Thus, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji buried their heads into their husband's embrace. Yi Hua thought to himself, "Little fellow, today is my gamble, you are lucky." In the arena, Brett stared fixedly at Rodney, who was 20 meters away from him. Pulling out an arrow, Brett knocked the arrow onto his bow. Facing such a huge figure, a feeling of powerlessness emerged from the bottom of his feet. Along with the sound of the battle starting, the arena burst into a clamor. "Kill him. Use your axe to chop that shorty to death. Kill, kill, kill. I want to see you tear that shorty's body apart. I want to see you drink that shorty's blood and tear him apart." Hearing those voices, Brett was at a loss. "I didn't offend them at all, why do they want me to die so much?" Roar. Rodney let out another roar, then leaned his entire body forward and rushed towards Brett. Facing such a ferocious aura, Brett was scared silly, and he stood on the spot, not knowing what to do anymore. Rodney could be seen leaping high into the air and raising his axe with both hands. If Rodney were to chop down with his axe, Brett would definitely be chopped into two. Rodney could be seen leaping high into the air and raising his axe with both of his hands. If Rodney were to chop down with his axe, Brett would definitely be chopped into two halves. Meanwhile, inside the floating private room, fourth young master was so nervous that he was clenching his fists tightly. Meanwhile, Xianxia's hand was originally placed on Fengwulvlan's thigh, and right now he was so nervous that he was tightly pinching onto Fengwulvlan's thigh. Meanwhile, Fengwulvlan was staring fixedly at the screen and had even forgotten to shout out in pain. Shi Tingting also held her breath. "Did I lose just like this? Isn't this a little too fast? That's a universe artifact and it was gone in less than 10 seconds. Yi Hua appeared to be very calm and he was very confident in Brett. "I, the Supreme Overlord, will cheat? That's impossible. I, the Supreme Overlord, have never cheated before." Although Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji didn't intend to watch the battle, but they were women after all and they didn't mean what they said. Both of them were nervously staring at the screen. Right now, Brett was staring blankly at the Minotaur, who was leaping high into the air. Even the blood vessels within the Minotaur's eyes could be seen clearly. Grandfather's pale face appeared in Brett's mind. "Cannot die. I must take the prize money back to treat grandfather's illness." At this crucial moment, Brett rolled to the side. There was a loud bang. The iron axe hacked onto the ground and half of the axe's blade sank into the ground. From this, it could be seen just how strong the Minotaur was. Chapter 461. The fourth young master, who was in the floating private room, let out a sigh. "Such a good opportunity and I actually missed it just like that." While rolling, Brett's gaze became serious. He quickly pulled the bow and took aim. His movements were rather proficient, but what no one knew was that this was the first time that Brett held a bow. Bayou. The arrow drew a beautiful straight line in the air and firmly hit its target. Oh. Rodney let out a miserable shriek. The arrow pierced through one of his eyes and blood immediately flowed out from the arrow, covering his entire face. Brett immediately ran away. He wasn't stupid. Rodney's muscles were as tough as stone. My arrow was completely unable to cause any damage to Rodney. The most effective way to attack is to shoot Rodney's eyes. Facing the sudden counterattack, everyone was a bit stupefied. The situation in front of us isn't real. That is the powerful Tauren Rodney, the champion of 5 consecutive victories. Even a stone man was struck to death by that attack, let alone a dwarf. I definitely underestimated my enemy. I was too careless. Looking at the situation, the fourth young master was already sweating cold sweat. If I really lose, I definitely won't be able to get my money back. Rodney has a universe artifact. How am I supposed to snatch it away? Do I have to use my life to snatch it away? This damn dwarf was just standing there motionlessly just a moment ago. Why did he suddenly move and even blind the Tauren's eye? Could it be that this isn't a game of brute force but a game of technology instead? This is too much of a scam. The organizer is clearly digging a pit for us. Seeing the little elf's counterattack, Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji immediately cried out in surprise. How could they not be able to bear it anymore? The person that I chose naturally has his reasons. There is no need for me to cheat at all. I am just that confident. Brett, who was in the field, drew his bow again, aimed and shot. Bayou. What Brett needed to do right now was to blind the other eye of the Tauren. Only then would he have a chance of winning, otherwise it would be useless. Rodney immediately let out a roar, pulled out the axe that was stuck in the ground, then turned around. The arrow pierced through Rodney's firm arm and pierced through the skin, but it didn't bleed at all. I am going to crush you. Rodney went crazy. After pulling out the arrow from his eye, he ran towards Brett without a care for his life. Brett ran away hurriedly. There was no hope for him to fight Rodney head-on. However, every step that the Tauren took was equivalent to Brett running a few steps. The axe once again fell and Brett hurriedly dodged, but Rodney immediately lifted his foot and kicked the petite body. Brett had no other choice but to protect his chest with both hands and withstand the power of this kick. Bang! The kick landed heavily on Brett's arms. Brett's entire body flew out like a cannonball and crashed into the wall. Then he fell to the ground motionless. The entire place was silent for a moment, then erupted into loud cheers. Rodney did not disappoint them. He killed the shorty with one kick. The fourth young master in the floating room shouted excitedly. They won. Although it was a little scary just now, it was still more daunting than dangerous. As expected of a Tauren, his combat power was extraordinary. Shi Tingting heaved a sigh of relief. Did she lose just like that? Yizichen took a look at the Cosmos God equipment on the table. Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji didn't care about the Cosmos God equipment on the table at all. They were worriedly looking at the elves on the screen. However, in the eyes of the fourth young master, they were worried that he would lose the Cosmos God equipment. However, Yihua was not worried in the slightest. He was as steady as MT Tai and had the posture of a big shot. No one would be able to learn this posture of Yihua, and even if they were able to learn it, they would not have that kind of pretentiousness. If it wasn't for Xianxia saying that smoking was not good for the fetus, I would have smoked a mouthful of it. Boss Yi, it seems like our luck today is a bit lacking. Dai Anren smiled, indicating that he had let him win. Right now, as long as he chopped off that shorty's head, the owner of this Cosmos Divine equipment would change. Even the owner of these two beauties would change as well. Just when the fourth young master was feeling happy, a white light descended from afar. Shui Gao went into a daze for a moment, then laughed. For someone to break through in this kind of small city, it is truly a miracle. That's true, there are quite a lot of surprises tonight. Zhao Gang followed along and said. However, the white light that they were seeing right now was precisely the white light that Zhou Xian was seeing. In a while, they would be able to see another white light soaring into the sky. Within the arena, Rodney dragged his heavy iron axe and walked towards Brett while gasping for breath. Damn shorty, you actually destroyed my eyes. I'm going to eat you alive. Rodney let out a series of growls and swore that he would have a feast of human flesh tonight. I heard that the flesh of elves is exceptionally sweet. When the spectators saw Rodney walking towards Brett, their eyes were filled with excitement. They really wanted to see the scene of the shorty being torn apart piece by piece. Rodney raised his iron axe and said angrily, I am going to chop you into pieces and eat you alive. Just when everyone thought that the outcome of the battle was already set, Brett, who was not moving at all, suddenly grabbed onto the sand on the ground and threw it towards Rodney's face. Rodney, who was holding onto his axe with both hands, was unable to block in time, and the sand immediately fell into his eyes. Little bastard. I am going to chop you to death. Rodney did not bother to wipe his eyes and directly chopped down onto Brett. Brett hurriedly dodged and blood was already flowing out from the corner of Brett's mouth. That chop just now was really painful, and right now his entire body was still hurting. Taking advantage of the fact that Rodney was unable to see clearly, Brett hurriedly ran away. Rodney, who was blinded, randomly chopped at Brett as he roared and cursed. Brett stood 10 meters away and drew his bow. His eyes were filled with determination. I must win. By the accuracy of an arrow at close range was greatly increased. In addition, Rodney was flustered and exasperated. He did not even protect his other eye properly and was shot again. Ah! Rodney, who was completely blinded, let out a miserable roar, and the iron axe in his hands fell to the ground. Seeing this, Brett immediately ran over and grabbed the iron axe with both hands. He used all his strength to drag Rodney away, not letting him pick up the iron axe again. When Rodney reacted and went to pick up the iron axe, he discovered that it was gone. Damn Shorty, if you have the ability, fight me one-on-one. I'm going to trample you to death. The crazed Rodney ran around in fear, using his own head to hit the ground. It was obvious that he had lost his mind. Brett stood in the middle and watched as Rodney ran away in fear. A few minutes later, Rodney no longer had any strength left. He panted heavily, and the blood flowing out of his eyes was shocking. Little Shorty, chop him to death. Yes, chop off his head. The entire arena was instantly filled with cheers. Killing a Little Shorty was indeed satisfying, but seeing the champion of 5 consecutive victories die seemed to be even more satisfying. Rodney clearly heard the cheers of the audience and he roared angrily, I will not lose. I will kill that Little Shorty. Chapter 462. Brett's height was about the same as the iron axe, and it was very difficult for him to pick up the axe. However, when Brett thought of his grandfather, his small body immediately became filled with power. Carrying the iron axe, Brett spun the axe backwards and aimed at Rodney's leg. The pain from Rodney's leg was transmitted into his brain, and his body immediately fell onto the ground with blood flowing out from his knee. Meanwhile, Brett once again carried the iron axe and stood beside Rodney. Everyone held their breath. This is the counterattack from the elf Shorty. He used his wisdom to win the match. In actuality, Brett didn't want to kill Rodney, but the rules are dead. If I don't kill Rodney, I won't be able to get any money and my grandfather will lose his life. Thinking up to here, Brett's heart became firm and he tightly held onto the iron axe. Ah! Following Brett's shout, the iron axe drew an arc in the air and accurately chopped onto Rodney's neck. Looking at the Minotaur who lost his life in front of him, Brett's entire body became powerless as he sat on the ground and gasped for breath. The pain from his entire body came back again. The audience became quiet for a moment, then immediately burst into cheers. Under the situation where there was a huge disparity in strength, the elf Shorty actually completed a perfect counterattack, causing everyone to exclaim in admiration. The MC came back to his senses and announced the result of the match. Congratulations to Brett from the elf race for winning the match. This is a battle of wits, strength isn't absolute, brains are king. The entire arena seemed as if it was going to be turned upside down. Everyone was shouting and even those who lost money felt that it was worth it. This match looked very satisfying. However, not everyone was willing to lose. For example, the 4 young masters who were currently in the floating private room were currently staring blankly at the screen, while Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji had already stood up and celebrated. Although this was just an ordinary match, the elf Shorty displayed astonishing talent and defeated his opponent under the situation where there was a huge disparity in strength. Yihua smiled lightly. I, the Supreme Overlord, have never been wrong in judging people to the point where I won without cheating. Shi Tingting, keep the money. Yihua said faintly. Shi Tingting, who was in a daze, didn't even react to what Yihua said. Only when Yihua reminded her did she realize that she had to keep all of the money. A total of 400 billion gold coins, and my family's total wealth is only 5 billion gold coins. Can be seen how rich the people in the main city are. The 4 young masters were completely dumbfounded. That elf Shorty clearly fell to the ground. Why is he still standing up? Why? This is impossible. In the distance, another ray of white light shot into the sky from the ground, but the 4th young master was not in the mood to look at it. Boss Yi. Zhou Xian said gravely. Yihua picked up the flowing lotus blade that was on the table and said faintly, What happened? The four young masters didn't Yihua and said. Yihua. Ye each of you, ye I of you, you I, ye I, you each. After finished speaking, Yihua kept the knife. Earning money is still rather easy. I wonder what is the exchange rate of gold coins to RMB. Yi. High up. Yi Qing, he thought. The four young masters had a gloomy face. I want to snatch the money, but I'm afraid of other people's universe artifact. But I have already lost the money, what should I do? This is 100 billion gold coins. If I don't get this money back, my family will instantly fall and become a third-rate family in the main city. The four young masters huddled together and discussed for a while, and they seemed to have reached a consensus. Boss Yi, can you give us another chance? Dai Anren asked gravely. Upon hearing that, Shi Tingting hurriedly persuaded, Mister, don't agree to their request, there is definitely a conspiracy. Right now, the four young masters wished that they could drink Shi Tingting's blood and gnaw on her bones. Yihua didn't care about it, all of the conspiracies and schemes are nothing in my eyes. Speak. Zhao Gang said gravely, fight with us, but you are not allowed to use the universe artifact. If we win, give us the money and the blade. If we lose, give us another 100 billion gold coins. Upon hearing that, Shi Tingting shouted shamelessly, Mister, don't listen to them, they are not able to take out that much money. Furthermore, their request is very excessive. Yihua raised his hand and signaled Shi Tingting to be quiet. Shi Tingting didn't understand. Mister, they are obviously digging a pit for you. Yihua didn't answer, instead he looked towards his two wives. Qingya, Baiji, do you want to see your husband fight? Qingya and Donghuang Baiji rolled their eyes at their husband. You obviously want to go, yet you still came to ask us. Are you trying to make us the scapegoat? However, since my husband asked, I have to answer. We want to see whatever you do. This answer made Yihua very satisfied. As expected of my women, they are becoming more and more sensible. Yihua looked at the four young masters coldly. All right. I am happy today, I agree to your request, but we have to fight in the arena below. The four young masters immediately stiffened. If we fight in the arena, we won't stop until one of us dies. I have to discuss this. Mr. Yi, wait a moment. The four young masters stood at the side and discussed. Zhao Gang said faintly, that boss Yi is just a martial artist, we still have a chance. Shui Gaoqiao nodded. That's right, after all, it is four of us against one. There is no need to be afraid of anything. That's right, as long as he doesn't use a universe artifact, we will be able to win. Siwen Xian said gravely. As long as he dies, everything will belong to us. Who knows, there might be even better things. Dai Anren sneered. I want both women and treasures. Fenglovlan could be seen suddenly walking over and saying lightly, don't you all feel that it is strange? He is just a martial artist, why would he accept the challenge of four martial artists? I feel that it is better for you all to be careful. Siwen Xian gave Fenglovlan a backhand slap and sent her flying. Stinky woman. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be in such a situation. Idiot woman. Yihua and the others looked on silently. Why make things difficult for a woman? And that Fenglovlan directly fainted from the slap. The four young masters of the main city no longer have a way out. If we go back like this, it will be hard for us to report to our family and we might even be chased out of the family. Alright, we agree to it. The four of us will fight against you. You cannot use a universe artifact. Zhao Gang warned again. Yihua slowly stood up. Alright. Shi Tingting helplessly contacted the organizer. And when the organizer heard that it would be a martial artist against a martial artist, they immediately stopped the competition. This was a big deal. When they found out that it would be 4 against 1, they were completely stunned. Originally, they thought that it would be 1 martial artist against 4 martial artists, but they didn't expect that it would be 1 martial artist against 4 martial artists. Chapter 463. The fourth young master had already left to make preparations. Yihua smiled towards his wives. If I die, what will you two do? Company you. Qingya caressed Yihua's cheeks and said. Company you. Donghuang Baiji hugged onto Yihua and expressed her answer. This caused Yihua to smile slightly. Soon after, he hugged onto his wives and said softly, if I really die one day, Don't do anything stupid and take good care of the children. The faces of the two wives sunk. Originally we thought that Yi Hua was just joking, but we didn't expect that he would actually say such words. Yi Hua, if you say such things again in the future we will ignore you. Xianxia said angrily. Yi Hua actually said that he was going to die. Fifth you jinx. Dong Huang Baiji couldn't help but stretch out her hand and slap onto Yi Hua's lips. She immediately recalled that time when Yi Hua was injured and almost thought that he died. A trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Yi Hua's mouth. I was just joking with you too. The person who is able to kill me has yet to be born. Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji gave Yi Hua, this is more like it, expression. Petingting, go and check where that elf from just now lives. Yi Hua wanted to go and meet that Brett, a very interesting elf girl. Shi Tingting was a bit surprised but she still nodded her head and agreed. She was curious why her husband wanted to look for that child. I reckon that he wants to thank me, after all I helped her husband win so much money. However, Xianxia and Dong Huang Baiji didn't think so. They understood their husband very well now, and they knew that he definitely wasn't just going to thank him for something else. Could it be that he has taken a fancy to that elf? Wants to take her in as his disciple? That shouldn't be possible. Yi Hua isn't suited to be a master. Right now in the arena the spectators couldn't wait any longer. It has already been half an hour, why hasn't the next match started yet? Hurry up and start, I have already finished sucking my chicken rolls. Damn it, why isn't it starting yet? We want to watch beauties fight. The organizer was currently having an intense discussion, and that was the problem of the opening ratio. Just now the little shorty's performance helped them earn quite a lot of money, and this match was 4 against 1. This was completely a one-sided situation, even the smartest person wouldn't be able to turn the tables around. The result came out very quickly. The one who bet on 4th young master had the lowest odds in the world and the one who bet on Yi Hua had the highest odds of 1,000. However, when such a ratio appeared all the audience and the people in front of the screen were dumbfounded. What surprised them was not the ratio but the people on both sides. The 4 young masters of the main city against a man. How was this possible? They were the 4 young masters of the main city. They had the strength of warriors. However, watching them fight was a kind of enjoyment. The scene immediately caused an uproar. For samurai against one martial artist. It was obviously a one-sided battle. This was not like the previous battle where they were all ordinary people. The disparity in strength and numbers was too great. Everyone felt that the person called Yi Hua didn't have any chance of winning, and this kind of ratio could be casually bought. It was a sure win. Moreover, this kind of news had spread like wildfire. It seemed that the 4 young masters of main cities were quite famous. All of the surrounding cities were paying attention to this competition, and even the tycoons of main cities were paying attention to it. They were all prepared to win some money. In a small house somewhere, a young man and a young woman were also watching the match. Wife, this battle will definitely be 4th young master's victory. Let's bet everything we have, we will definitely be able to earn a small sum of money. And I also feel that 4th young master will definitely win. This is practically giving away money, we will bet everything. The money used to buy a car, the money used to book a hotel, the money used for the wedding, we will bet everything on it. Alright, after we win the money, we will go to another planet for our honeymoon. Hubby is the best. This kind of thing happened in various places. Although the payout ratio was indeed low, if one invested a large sum of money, one would still be able to win quite a bit of money. This was a match that would definitely be won. When the organizers saw the money that was rolling in, they were all dumbfounded. They didn't expect that the matter would develop so quickly. A lot of the money came from the surrounding cities and even the people from the imperial city were betting. However, it was impossible to close the bet. It was not time yet and these were all controlled by the rules. Furthermore, this was all an official match. Would the officials be afraid that they would not be able to afford it? From 10 billion to 100 billion, and then to 1 trillion. This was the first time that they had seen this kind of match. Even if it was 0.001, it would still not be a small sum of money. Seems like the payout ratio is still too high. Manager. Not good, just now an account bet 400 billion on Yi Hua. An employee suddenly ran over and shouted. What? 400 billion? The manager was immediately dumbfounded. 400 billion. If Yi Hua were to make a comeback like just now, how much money would he lose if that happened? 400 billion? When 400 billion appeared under Yi Hua's profile picture, a lot of people were astonished. Which tycoon is playing like this? He simply doesn't take money seriously at all. This is too savage. However, for such a big federation, it was still possible for them to afford it. The only problem was whether or not they wanted to pay. As for who was the one who bet so much money, it was naturally Xianxia and Donghuang Baizhi. Our husband's appearance fee should be more or less enough, right? Donghuang Baizhi teased while holding onto a glass of fruit wine. Xianxia shook her head. This idea was suggested by Baizhi. This idea is really as bad as Yi Hua. The two of you are simply trying to snatch away all of other people's money. Xianxia said with a slight smile. Donghuang Baizhi snorted. Who asked them to bet such a high ratio on Yi Hua? Let them reap what they sowed. What if they don't return the money? Let's go and check the accounts. Donghuang Baizhi's eyebrows twitched mischievously. Xianxia felt that this idea wasn't bad and revealed out a mischievous smile. Yi Hua has successfully led his two wives astray. Shi Tingting, who was sitting at the back, was very stupefied when she heard the conversation between the madams. The money that I just won is going to be used to gamble again. Why does your family like to gamble so much? After half an hour of betting, the bets were finally closed. The total amount of money that the four young masters had bet on Yi Hua had reached 2,312. 1 billion, while Yi Hua's side only had 400 billion. The difference between the two's bets could be said to be very big. The MC's hand that was holding onto the microphone was trembling. If I were to advertise this battle, I reckon that it would not only be this amount of money, it would be even more. Everyone, sorry for the long wait. The next battle will be the highlight of tonight's show. Even if I don't say it, everyone knows who they are. Zhou Xian from the main city. Dai Anren. Zhao Gang. High water. The iron gate below slowly rose and the fourth young master walked out from the gate. His expression wasn't very relaxed, instead it was very serious. This battle can only be won, it cannot be lost. Look at the heroic bearing of the main city's four young masters. That handsome face of theirs is so attractive. However, do not be deceived by their beauty. They even possess the strength of a rank 2 martial warrior. This person had to die. Ah! 4 voices rang out at the same time, and the aura of a second-grade martial warrior erupted from their bodies. Waves of earth-shattering spiritual qi swept through the entire arena. In the face of this kind of battle, the organizers had activated their protective energy to prevent ordinary people from getting hurt. The immense spiritual pressure continued to rise, and cracks appeared on the ground of the arena. Thick blood vessels were exposed on the surface of the skin, and all the bones in the body crackled like beans, emitting an aura of supremacy in the world. The pupils of the 4 young masters shrunk, and a powerful killing intent emerged and immediately attacked towards Yi Hua. The 4 young masters were like a sharp arrow that was charging up. 4 different directions, 4 fists. The air was like a pot of boiling water, surging and roaring. A punch from a martial warrior was very rarely seen, especially in this kind of small city. However, right now everyone was looking at a punch from a martial warrior. The might of this punch even caused the sky to become angry, and rumbling sounds could be heard. On the other hand, the man in the middle did not move at all. His expression did not even have any change, giving off a feeling as if he was waiting for death. However, only the 4 young masters who were attacking Yi Hua were able to clearly see that Yi Hua's eyes were like a bottomless abyss, flickering with an eerie light. Yi Hua's eyes were like a stranger that had killed his way out from hell. Even though Yi Hua was just standing there quietly, Yi Hua was still giving off an unlimited amount of pressure. Die! Dai Anren shouted out, cheering himself on. Yi Hua slightly looked towards Dai Anren, who was attacking towards him. You all don't know anything about my strength. When Dai Anren came into contact with Yi Hua's gaze, his entire body went numb. And Yi Hua moved. This kind of movement was something that no one was able to see. Yi Hua's speed had reached a kind of abnormal degree. Yi Hua clenched his right hand into a fist and punched towards Si Wenxian's head. Soon after, Yi Hua immediately jumped to the front of Shui Gao, raised his right leg high up into the air and fiercely gave a side kick. Yi Hua once again moved at high speed and kicked onto Si Wenxian's face. Soon after, Yi Hua punched onto Zhao Gang's head. After that, Yi Hua returned back to his original position. However, in the eyes of others, Yi Hua's movements did not even take 0.01 seconds. When half a second passed, the 4 people who were jumping high up into the air actually exploded in the air. All 4 heads exploded and the headless corpses fell heavily onto the ground. The headless corpses only stopped after sliding for a few meters. The whole place was dead silent. Even if an embroidery needle fell to the ground, it would be heard clearly. Looking at the corpses that were scattered all around, no one was able to accept this fact. Just a moment ago they were clearly so imposing, why did their heads explode in the air? Meanwhile, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji, who were in the floating private room, had already started hugging each other to celebrate. My husband's speed is indeed very fast, and in other aspects he is even more comfortable. No one at the scene cheered for Yi Hua. All of them had yet to recover from their shock. Everything happened too quickly. There wasn't any technique involved at all, and Yi Hua was able to instantly kill his opponents. However, in their hearts this shouldn't be the end result. The organizer immediately played the video that was played just now, and after checking the video frame by frame, they finally found out that something was fishy. Looking at Yi Hua, who was playing on the video, the staff fell into a daze. This is the video that was played at the slowest speed, and I was only able to capture a little bit of the video. Just how fast is this speed? This kind of video was played very quickly. After the audience saw the video, they felt that their hearts couldn't take it anymore. This is too fast. This is too fast. This man who is this terrifying is the formidable one. He instantly killed the 4 young masters of the main city. Although this is the arena, I will still suffer from revenge. Right now, there were a lot of people walking towards the rooftop, and there were even people queuing up at the places where there were a lot of people. Just now, there were a lot of people who were gambling their family fortune, and when the 4 young masters became 4 corpses, they were in despair. There were also a lot of rich people who were instantly stupefied. Although it wasn't to the extent of going bankrupt, but that was still a huge amount of mobile funds. How are we going to fill up such a huge amount of mobile funds? Isn't this the same as forcing people to jump off a building? Yi Hua took out a cigarette and lit it up. To be honest, I didn't enjoy the fun of the battle at all. It was because I was too weak. Yi Hua looked towards the MC coldly, still not announcing the result. The MC's entire body immediately turned cold, and while trembling with fear, he held onto the microphone. I announce the winner of this battle is Yi Hua. Although the MC had already announced the result, no one at the scene was able to become excited, and they revealed a gaze of fear as they looked at the man who was in the arena. Chapter 465. In the main city tens of thousands of miles away, the 4 fathers saw their sons die tragically in the arena with their own eyes, and their faces changed dramatically. For the sake of the cosmos' divine weapon, they had gathered together to discuss how to distribute it. Who would have thought that they would actually lose? Now that they had no money and no goods, the only way they could think of was to rob. Just as they were discussing, a servant came to report that the young master had participated in the arena. He didn't expect that his son would actually decide to duel on his own. At the same time, he was thinking in his heart that they definitely had the confidence. As long as they killed that man, they would be able to obtain the Cosmos God weapon. Thinking about it this way, his son's decision was quite smart. However, the battle had just begun. His son's performance was not bad and his momentum was strong. But in a short while he had turned into 4 corpses. The 4 fathers were all shocked. For him to be able to kill his opponent with such a fast speed, it could be seen how terrifying his strength was. How could someone who could take out a Cosmos God artifact be an ordinary person? What a miscalculation. While he was angry, he did not dare to retaliate. He could not retaliate at all. The other party was simply too powerful. Brother Zhao, why don't we use someone else to do the dirty work and spread the news about the Cosmos God artifact? Brother Dai, this move of yours is pretty good. There are so many people who want the Cosmos God artifact. As long as we send out the news, there will naturally be people who will go and find this man. Then he will die under the group attack. He will die a horrible death. I've also avenged my son Ha. The 4 fathers appeared to be very crazy, but this was also normal behavior. Right now, Yi Hua still didn't know that someone had already arranged an opponent for him and was currently hugging onto his 2 wives who were acting coquettishly. Facing against Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji's coquettish attacks, Yi Hua was unable to control himself, and he agreed to everything that they asked of him. This is a kind of, whatever you want to do, the Supreme Overlord will satisfy you. Xianxia hid at the side. She had goosebumps all over her body. Sir and Madam were really too intimate. She really couldn't stand it. Suddenly the man's mobile phone rang and then it said, "Sir, your child is here." Yi Hua, who was carrying his wife, turned his head around and said, "Oh? Had Ali had enough fun? Let's go back then. Have we reached Brett's location?" "Sir." "That's good." The floating room returned to the bar and the few of them left immediately, leaving behind the dizzy Fengwolflan. "Daddy, Mommy." Dong Huangli jumped down from Zhixingyi's embrace, then ran towards her parents. "I haven't seen Daddy and Mommy for a few hours. I really miss Daddy and Mommy." Donghuang Baiji immediately hugged onto her daughter and asked with concern, "Little fellow, you still know to come back." "I'm sorry, Mommy." Dong Huangli said pitifully. Yi Hua said with a smile, "All right, that doesn't matter. Ali has grown up." "Papa is right, Ali has grown up." Fei Bai and Zhixingyi walked over slowly and said respectfully, "Sir, Madam." Xianxia smiled slightly and said, "Ali, thank you all for taking care of me." Fei Bai and Zhixingyi were terrified. Ali should be the one taking care of them. "Madam, you're being too polite. If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave first," Fei Bai said softly, displaying his excellent manners. Yi Hua nodded his head and Dong Huangli waved her hand. "Big brother Fei, big sister Qingyi, goodbye, let's meet again another day." The two of them turned around and waved with a smile. "Little wimp, to think that we can meet another day." Dong Huang Baiji pinched onto the flesh on her daughter's face. Dong Huangli laughed mischievously, then hugged onto her mother and began sleeping. "So comfortable," Xianxia said respectfully at the side. "Sir, Madam, the organizer said that the money that you two won will be returned within 10 days, and the money that you two won has already been returned to you." "Won money?" Yi Hua asked confusedly. When Yi Hua heard that his wives had just participated in the gamble and even won money, Yi Hua became very happy. "Finally, my wives have become a bit naughty." "Xianxia, where's Brett's home?" Yi Hua asked. "Sir, Brett's home is in a slum." "Let's go." If Blue Blaze Planet's long and city was as big as a province, then the size of a slum would be as big as a city. After Brett received the 1,000 gold coins, he sat on the lightspeed tram and returned to the slum. Touching onto his sore shoulders, Brett revealed out a smile. "All of this is worth it. Grandpa will be able to be sent to the best hospital to receive treatment." After getting off the tram, Brett felt as if he had arrived at another world. The streets of the slum were filled with trash, the streets were filled with violence and sex, and all of the buildings were built with scrap iron. The prostitutes were leaning on the street lamp and swaying their bodies. As long as they could earn money, they would do anything. "Brett, you actually came back alive. It seems like you have gotten the prize money." 3 delinquents could be seen walking over slowly. Their faces were covered with tattoos, their lips and noses were pierced with iron nails, and their hands were holding onto thick and big sticks. If it was before, Brett would be afraid of them. "However, I had just killed an ox and defeated a strong opponent, so why would I be afraid of these 3 delinquents?" "That's right, 1,000 gold coins," Brett said gravely while opening his cyan eyes. "That's good, we have 999 gold coins. You can keep 1 gold coin for yourself." Brett asked, "Aren't you all curious about how I survived from the arena? Your opponent must have committed suicide." After finished speaking, the 3 delinquents laughed loudly. Suddenly, an old man walked over from the side. He is the ox who won 5 consecutive championships. He used an iron axe to chop off his opponent's head. "What? That's impossible." The 3 delinquents were shocked. Brett said gravely, "I can kill an ox for my grandpa, let alone small humans like you. You wait for me. I'll go call Big Brother." The 3 delinquents hurriedly ran away. The old man said to Brett, "Quickly go back and see your grandpa. Maybe you can see him for the last time." Brett didn't have time to thank them and ran back home. In a waste disposal station in the slums, there was a row of bungalows with people living in them. At this time they were all surrounding one of the houses. The anxious Brett ran until he was sweating profusely. Finally he ran to the door and shouted, "Grandpa, I have money, we can go to the hospital now." The people surrounding the house turned around and looked at Brett, their gazes filled with pity and sorrow. Brett stopped in his tracks. The people in front of him gave him a bad premonition, especially that sorrowful gaze. It can't be. Brett ran to the door and gently pushed it open, afraid that he would disturb his grandpa and make him cough. In the room of a few square meters there was a bed, a small table and a basin for drawing water. On the table, there was the porridge that his grandpa hadn't finished drinking. Although it was very poor, this small home gave Brett warmth. It was 100 times warmer than the outside world. Chapter 466. Brett looked at his grandfather who had fallen asleep, then slowly walked to the bedside. His hands lightly shook for a bit and his pair of green eyes seemed to be at a loss. "Grandpa, I am back, we have money now, look." Brett took out a virtual card and on the virtual card was displayed 1,000 gold coins. With a smile on her face, she seemed to be waiting for her grandpa to stretch out his hand and stroke her hair and praise her. However, that feeling was gone. "Grandpa, other than treating your illness, we can also buy some delicious food. Don't you want to eat corn on the cob? We can buy it now." Brett held onto his grandpa's big hand that was full of calluses and placed it beside his face. But his grandpa's big hand no longer had the warmth that it had in the past, only that heart-piercing coldness. "Grandpa, get up, quickly get up." Brett used all of her strength to shake her grandpa's body, but no matter how much she shook her grandpa's body, her grandpa couldn't get up anymore. She couldn't see her grandpa's benevolent smile anymore, and even more so, she couldn't ride on her grandpa's shoulder to watch the sunset. Hearing Brett's voice, everyone who was standing outside felt very sad, and some girls even let out small sobbing sounds. Only they knew how bitter this grandfather and grandson pair were. Although it was bitter, they were very happy. This kind of positive energy was also improving them, and they were once again filled with hope towards this world. Suddenly, 3 old cars appeared at the entrance of the house, the kind that had wheels, and the exhaust was clearly not up to standard. But this was not the main point. 10 or so strangely dressed hoodlums could be seen walking down from the car. The leader of the hoodlums was very tall and very skinny. He wore an orange suit, green pants, and a pair of golden shoes. Beside him was a girl who wore a sexy black camisole, just that her skin was dark and her looks were not good. Looking at her was a bit disgusting. "Where's Brett?" The boss slightly raised his head and asked coldly. "You guys are really enough. Bullying his grandfather and grandson for a few years, and now you still don't want to let them off." The neighbor at the side couldn't help but berate. "These people are simply heartless." "That's right. Brett's grandfather has already passed away. What else do you want?" The boss sneered. "That old man's death has nothing to do with me. You capture Brett for me." The boss fiercely gave the order. 3 or 4 hoodlums ran into the house and pulled out Brett, who was in pain. At this moment, Brett was already filled with despair towards the world, and even more so, he was thinking how good would it be if he died in the arena. That way he would be able to be together with his grandfather. One of the gangsters found Brett's card and handed it to the boss. "Password?" the boss asked in a deep voice. At this moment, Brett was like a person who had lost his soul. His eyes were unfocused and he couldn't hear the words of others at all. All of his thoughts were deeply immersed in his own consciousness. Seeing no reaction from Brett, the boss raised his hand and slapped him. But this slap sent Brett tumbling to the ground, but Brett did not react at all. He was like a walking corpse. "You bastards!" The 2 men couldn't stand it anymore and rushed over. The boss sneered, "Drag him to the side and cripple him." If everyone were to attack together, it would be hard to tell who would win or lose. Unfortunately, the 2 men were knocked down to the ground by 4 or 5 gangsters, and those gangsters hit the men with sticks without any regard for their lives. To them, suffering such heavy injuries was no different from waiting for death, because they had no money to see a doctor. Just like Brett's grandfather in the beginning, he only suffered from a slight cold, but slowly, it became a serious illness. "Brett, tell me the password and you'll suffer less." The boss took the baseball bat from his underling and said to Brett. Brett still didn't react. The boss laughed, then held onto the baseball bat with both of his hands, aimed at the back of Brett's head, then raised the baseball bat up high. Bang! The baseball bat fiercely hit onto the back of Brett's head, letting out a clear and melodious sound. Everyone couldn't stand it anymore. There is basically no one who cares about the slums and people are dying every day. The heavy hit on the back of Brett's head caused him to faint. The boss waved the baseball bat that was covered in blood and whistled, "Wake him up." The underlings seemed to have gotten used to it and they took out the taser from the car. This is the best way to wake someone up. Zzz. Along with the sound of intense coughing, Brett was electrocuted and coughed out blood non-stop, and his pair of green eyes became red due to being congested with blood. "I will ask you one more time. What is the password?" The boss gave the final announcement. Brett turned his head around with great effort and looked towards the boss, then closed his eyes. His attitude was already very clear. The boss took a deep breath because he was angry. "Brett? Since your grandfather is already dead, why do you have to continue suffering? Let me free you." After finished speaking, the boss once again raised the baseball bat that was covered in blood and fiercely smashed onto Brett's head. Bang! The melodious sound caused everyone's heart to feel very heavy, and they could only watch helplessly as Brett was beaten to death by a hooligan. The boss threw the baseball bat that was in his hand to his underling, then looked at the card that was in his hand, then threw it onto Brett's body, as if he was telling the two of you to properly use these 1,000 gold coins in hell. Brett's head was already dyed red with blood, and there was no longer any aura left on his body. Evidently he was beaten to death by this boss. "Let's go." The boss gave the order. However, right at this moment, a luxurious aircraft appeared in the sky and was hovering in the sky. Everyone was very surprised. There is actually a rich person who came to the slums. This is truly a miracle. "Boss, this aircraft might cost a few million gold coins." One of the underlings reminded. The boss squinted his eyes and began to have ideas about this aircraft. He decided to look at the situation first before deciding what to do. A blue light shone down, and Yi Hua could be seen holding onto Qinya's shoulder while Shi Tingting appeared below. Dong Huang Baiji was taking care of her daughter inside, so she didn't come down. Yi Hua looked at the row of single-story houses in front of him, and the surrounding was emitting a rusty smell. Yi Hua slightly wrinkled his brows. "We are staying here, sir." However, when the surrounding people sized up Yi Hua, this person's bearing revealed a sense of arrogance. Judging from the way he is dressing, he is definitely a person with power. After all rich people dress like this. When they saw Xianxia, a lot of people were stupefied. This was the first time that they had seen such a beautiful woman. Although the woman behind Xianxia was also beautiful, she wasn't as beautiful as this woman. This woman's beauty already had no bottom line. And when those hooligans saw the back of the two women, they knew that the two women were definitely very beautiful. "Where's Brett?" Yi Hua asked faintly. These neighbors didn't expect that this arrogant man was actually here to look for Brett. "Why haven't I heard of him before? Brett actually knows a rich person." A little girl within the crowd pointed towards the back of Yi Hua. Chapter 467. Xianxia and Shi Tingting turned their heads to look, and their faces immediately changed. When the scoundrel saw Xianxia's appearance, his saliva almost flowed out. "I have never seen such a beautiful woman in my entire life. Although she is pregnant, it will definitely feel great." Yi Hua's gaze gradually became cold and Xianxia was the same as well. Only Shi Tingting appeared to be very surprised. With heavy footsteps, Yi Hua walked to Brett's side. The back of Brett's head was filled with blood, and even his skull was dented. Yi Hua was very angry. "I only came a bit late. This kind of thing actually happened. These trash actually killed Brett. They actually killed one of his 7 deadly sins, Brett. I still want to know what happened to Brett's body. You filthy human, the source of all evil." "Yi Hua, are you all right?" Seeing that her husband's mood was not very good, Xianxia asked worriedly. Yi Hua did not pay attention to Xianxia and stretched out his hand to inspect Brett's body. As expected, it is her. Although she is already dead, as long as I awaken her power, she will be able to come back to life. In actuality, ever since Brett appeared, Yi Hua was a bit suspicious. This Brett is one of my 7 sins, the angry representative. Why did I say it was suspicious? Because in the past, Brett was a tall and beautiful woman, while right now Brett was a little short. This made Yi Hua very curious. Just what happened to this Brett? How did she become a little child? She is the queen of the night elves, but right now she doesn't look like a night elf at all. Her hair is all white and she is no different from a normal elf. Thinking back then Brett was very awesome. She managed to escape from the Elf Queen's pursuit, then met me and swore to be loyal to me. As long as I can kill her big sister, she is willing to do anything for me. The Elf Queen's skull on Yi Hua's skeleton throne was personally cut off by Brett. And Brett's strong point was her strange sneak attacks, especially her archery. It had simply reached an abnormal realm, making it hard for people to guard against it. Brett was second to none when it came to long-distance battles, but if someone were to get close to her, her strength would at least decrease by half. But I never expected that Brett would actually be killed by a group of scoundrels. If I didn't discover Brett, she would have completely disappeared. Brett, who was lying on the ground, gradually floated up. His body shone with a green light, and the bloodstains on his face and hair gradually disappeared. His entire body became clean. However, it was a pity that Brett was only a child. Brett was a very sexy and fiery elf woman. Of course, Brett was only loyal to Yi Hua. However, Brett had thoughts about Zhou Xian. Unfortunately, she was fiercely rejected by Absolute Heaven. His reason was that he, Absolute Heaven, would never touch a woman in his life. Yi Hua looked at Brett and stretched out his finger. A golden light shot into Brett's abdomen. Bang! A powerful air wave rushed out from Brett's body, and the power within Brett's body was instantly released, which began healing Brett's fleshly body. Adding on Yi Hua's assistance from the side, Brett's injuries healed very quickly, and this caused Yi Hua to heave a sigh of relief. Xianxia and Shi Tingting, who were at the side, were very surprised. This was the first time that Xianxia had seen Yi Hua saving someone instead of killing someone. Seems like the elf race is very important to Yi Hua. Moreover, from that aura just now, this elf was very strong. The hooligans didn't dare to move. They wanted to escape, but their feet seemed to be filled with lead and couldn't move. Brett, who was in the sky, gradually descended, and his aura was completely retracted. No spiritual energy fluctuation could be felt from him at all. When Brett opened his dark green eyes once again, everyone felt that Brett had changed. Brett could be seen looking at Yi Hua and being startled. Soon after, Brett walked in front of Yi Hua and slowly knelt down. Subordinate Brett pays respect to your honor. Yi Hua forgot to tell Brett. Your honor. Xianxia was very confused. You came to a foreign planet to travel and you are still able to meet your subordinate? And you are still calling me your honor? What is going on? Yi Hua said faintly, my Dharma name is your honor, and Brett is my subordinate who has been separated from me for many years. So that's how it is. Xianxia understood, and Shi Tingting, who was at the back, was stupefied. Your honor. Please allow subordinate to deal with my personal matters first, and afterward, I will come and look for your honor to ask for forgiveness. Brett's tone became strange and eerie. Furthermore, Brett seemed especially mature, completely unable to tell that he was a child. Yi Hua nodded his head. I will allow you to deal with those who deserve to die. Leave none alive. Yes, your honor. Brett was already on the verge of being unable to suppress the anger in his heart. If not for his honor being present, he would have already flown into a rage. Yi Hua hugged onto the puzzled Xianxia and returned to the flying device in the sky. After returning to the flying device, he had to explain to Donghuang Baiji. In the end, the two women came to the conclusion that their husband was tricking someone else again. He already knew that it was his subordinate. Raising his head and looking at his honor leaving, Brett let out a deep breath, then slowly turned around and looked at the 10+ scoundrels. Brett, don't think that you're great just because you know rich people. I know him too. Big Brother was a little scared by Brett's imposing manner. Do you think this has anything to do with money? Brett angrily shouted. Trash. Along with Brett's angry roar, more than 10 thick and solid tree vines extended from the ground like pythons. This made the hooligans paralyzed on the ground in fright. What kind of monster was this? Thick vines wrapped around the hooligan, binding him tightly like a python. Brett shouted angrily, you should also taste the taste of pain. The tree vines gradually tightened and more than 10 hooligans let out miserable howls. It was like a hydraulic press slowly compressing them. Puff, puff. Blood sprayed out from all of the hooligans' mouth, eyes and ears, and their skin began to burst open just like watermelons. Hearing the miserable howls of the hooligans, Brett walked towards the small bungalow. However, no one dared to get close to Brett, and all of them distanced themselves from him. The current Brett was even scarier than those hooligans. Yi Hua's entire family was temporarily staying at Shi Tingting's villa. In any case, right now we have a lot of money, so we are preparing to build a big manor and try out all kinds of high technology. Dong Huang Baiji took the lead and brought her daughter to sleep, and Xianxia could only feel helpless. However, in actuality she also wanted to do it. After all, it is rather comfortable to do it once a day, and it is beneficial to one's health. Right now Yi Hua was bathing, and Xianxia, who was outside, asked, "Yi Hua, Shi Tingting said that universe trash of yours will be exposed." Yi Hua lied in the bathtub and received the fully automatic bathing method. This is simply the welfare of a lazy person. This set of equipment must definitely be installed in my bedroom. It doesn't matter, in any case we are all here to travel. Yi Hua shouted comfortably with his eyes closed. Xianxia still did not know what her husband's goal was and just let him be. "Hey, how much longer are you going to bathe for? I have already waited for you for half an hour." Xianxia was really bored sitting on the bed. Yi Hua said comfortably, "Let me bathe for another half an hour." Chapter 468. Then there was the trivial matter between husband and wife. Without this kind of trivial matter, how could life continue? How could life become perfect? So many people insisted on this kind of trivial matter. The first day of interstellar travel ended happily just like that. Although it was a little tricky, it was still quite interesting. He had witnessed the development of technology. It seemed that there was no work that required human labor. Everything was done by robots. However, this situation did not seem optimistic. For example, the people in the slums could not find a job at all. Every day there were people joining the slums. They were all forced to go there. Money was too important. Just when Yi Hua was hugging onto Xianxia and sleeping, the entire blue blaze star seemed to be in an uproar. Late at night, a piece of news spread out. A Cosmos God artifact had appeared. Obtaining a Cosmos divine weapon would allow one to stand on equal footing with the Federation president and control life and death. This news not only shocked the major cities, but even the imperial capital was shaken. Everyone was curious about the source of the news. Federation President Felisa had called for an emergency roundtable meeting. Including him, there were a total of 6 people. The other 5 were the 3 great martial kings, Zhuanghong, Qingyan and Gao Han. The director of the Space Administration, Ziyang. Home of martial arts leader, Wu Xian. In the eyes of the world, they may only know of the 3 martial kings. In fact, the director of the Space and Time General Administration is also a martial king expert. The same is true for the leader of the martial arts family, Wu Xian. Even the president himself is a martial king. President Felipe was a fair-skinned, seductive man. His appearance was a little androgynous, but his body was very dignified. This feeling was very strange. The Cosmos God equipment is in Long City. Is this news true? Felisa gently knocked on the table and asked aloud. Ziyang, the director of the Space and Time General Administration, said, "Your Excellency, when the news came out, I sent people to catch the person who spread the rumor. Under torture, this rumor is true. In order to cause unnecessary chaos, I have already silenced him." Those 4 family heads let out the news that the Cosmos divine artifact was in Long City, but they didn't mention who it was. In the end, they were captured by this bureau chief, and after being whipped, they obediently revealed the situation. In the end, all of them were silenced. The leader of the House of Martial Arts, Wu Xian, was a white-haired old man with deep wrinkles on his face. Although his eyes were closed, he was still listening. "Who is it?" Wu Xian asked with his eyes closed. Ziyang smiled and said, "I wonder if everyone paid attention to the special match last night." Obviously, no one would pay attention to this. Bureau Chief Ji, don't beat around the bush. Felisa said coldly. Ziyang paused and pulled out the video. According to the confession, this man has a Cosmos divine weapon. Everyone looked towards the virtual screen, and when they saw Yi Hua instantly killing 4 people, they all went into a daze. "This man should be a martial master," Martial King Zhuanghong said coolly. Qingyan stroked his beard. "I didn't expect a puny martial master to obtain a Cosmos divine weapon. Perhaps he has some skill." Gao Han laughed lightly. Ziyang continued, "Your Excellency, there are 2 women and a child with this man. The 2 women are his wives. This child was born to one of the wives and the other is pregnant. They should be travelers. Very soon Xianxia, Donghuang Baiji and Donghuang Li's photos appeared on the screen. Everyone went into a daze. Even Wu Xiangwen, who had his eyes closed the entire time, opened his eyes. No matter how old a man is, he would always have this kind of love for beauty. The appearance of the two women is indeed very astonishing, but their exact strength is unknown. However, this child destroyed 2 testing machines during the test yesterday. I'm afraid that he should have the strength of an 8th or 9th rank martial warrior. Ji Yang continued to report the information. Felisa slightly wrinkled his brows and said coolly, in order to ensure the stability of the universe, this Cosmos Divine weapon definitely has to be taken back. The other party is only a martial master, there is nothing to fear. Which one of you is going to take care of this matter? In actuality, you can put it in another way. Which one of you is going to take care of this matter? This old man is willing to take back the Cosmos Divine weapon for your excellency, President. Wu Xiangwen said gravely. Seems like this old man is very evil, to actually have ideas on Xianxia and Donghuang Baiji. That can't be helped, their beauty is something that both the young and the old are attracted to. Felisa nodded his head. This matter has to be done secretly, don't let anyone find out about it. Don't worry, your excellency. I will make the necessary arrangements. That's good. Right now, I reckon that there are a lot of people who are rushing towards Long'an City wanting to try their luck. They are just some people with ulterior motives. Kill as many as you can. Felisa sneered. Truly a bunch of fellows who don't know the difference between life and death, to think that they are on equal footing with me. Yes. Long'an City was indeed very lively today. The number of aircrafts in the sky was 10 times more than usual. The streets were filled with dense masses of people. There were also a lot of outsiders waiting to enter the city. They had all come after receiving the news. They wanted to try their luck or broaden their horizons. Although they did not know whether it was true or not, they still came.